November the 19th, in the year of our Lord 2018. The opinions expressed by the participants in the following program do not necessarily represent that of this station or its management. From the John DeVita Recording Studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. The month of November, this is our special Thanksgiving show. Now here's the guy who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Rich Lang, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, November the 19th, the year 2018. Today, the panel will be talking about Thanksgiving, how we spend Thanksgiving, and etc. And, of course, much, much more. So sit back and enjoy Meet the Chicago Historians. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Richard Lang.
Now here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan. Jack?
Well, hello, sports fans. It's a beautiful November day of 28 degrees. I think, folks, guys, I got to tell you, I hate to go out on a limb like this, but I think summer's over.
Yep.
Just want to let you know. So
We've
once
seen
again,
snow already.
as we already said, this is our monthly get-together in November and brings us Thanksgiving, and we just finished with a Veterans Day. And, of course, we're going to talk a little about how things were in the past, how Thanksgivings were when we were younger, what it's been like as a tradition. So I'm going to start a little around the bend here. Starting to my right, I have
Tom McKenna, retired Chicago Police, and lifelong friend of our moderator. I've known him through all his various aliases. When I met him, it was John. Then for a while, it was Jack. Then he adopted Red.
Yeah.
And I am one of the few people that actually admit that I am a lifelong friend of John, Red, Jack,
But he
Ryan.
couldn't talk me out of it. He was best man at the wedding.
That's right.
Yeah. Next case. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Don Peter, retired from Downtown Oak Park Merchant Association about 7 years. I'm a member of the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago. And other than that, I just sit and think. And sometimes I just sit.
Got to speak up now. Next case. Rich.
Hi, this is your announcer, Rich Lang. I've got a background in teaching modern American and European history. Got more and more involved with Chicago history, and I'm a part of a group that recreates old-time radio shows.
You done any lately?
No, we got a couple early next year.
Yeah.
It's been a slow season for us.
What are you going to be doing, do you think,
People want to hear who's on first.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a nice, long Burns and Allen sketch, too, we're working on.
Well, which one of your else are you going to talk about tonight, Gracie? Very good.
Can you get one now, Obama and Biden? Get them together?
Now, that'd be an interesting show.
Yeah.
Obama and Biden. Okay.
Would you
Yep.
believe?
We've heard so much about Michelle lately. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I thought we'd have her down as a
Same as
guest,
book
but
tour.
she was already out of town.
Oh.
Next up. Sir?
Bill Kugelman, I'm retired fire and in Chicago, and also on the board of the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, which this coming Saturday after Thanksgiving, hopefully all the kids are off and all the parents are back in normal shape. We have an open house, 5218 South on Western Avenue. We're open from 10 until 2. Bring the kids, bring a camera, and it's very interesting. And it should be a very full day that day too.
And it's no admission charge, but you will accept get a donation, right?
A donation is accepted.
All
yeah.
donations cheerfully accepted.
It's all volunteer work. You'll find the all of the equipment and the paraphernalia that the Chicago Fire Department has had since really since their beginning.
Mhm.
One of our big displays that I personally like, and every Italian in the city likes, is a picture of, or a statue, I should say, of Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
And this was at the Columbian Exposition in '93.
Right.
And
1893 for you young folks.
And it's in good shape,
Mhm.
and we have it on display there.
Was
So,
that displayed at the front of the cold storage building?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was. I had it in the Columbus Day Parade here a few years
I
back,
remember that.
and it was really a standout. I mean, everybody really enjoyed it, but
Right.
I can't get the I will say fellows that I work with to okay doing it again.
Right.
You
No.
know, and here's something that really stood out. You know, with our name on the side and that.
Well, yeah.
so.
It was really on a draw.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's interesting. And by the way, your zip code is 60632 over there.
Is it really?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm a zip code. Remember Ken was with streets? I'm zip codes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I'm Jack Ryan, and I was like Tom, the police for 34 years more, and the only full-time job I ever had, and of course I had a lot of part-time jobs, a lot of those chief of security of this place or that place, chief of security, show up with your gun, be around if they need you. Also did a little, I did a little union organizing, which were unsuccessful, but we did get the contract through the FOP later, and I also little dabbled in pro wrestling. We had a boss come in, new commander over when I worked at Chicago Lawn, and the guy driving me around I had worked with in 21, Bob Davino? Yeah, Bob Davino. And apparently he told him I had wrestled, so he comes over and says to me, I was at the copy machine, says, Ryan, you wrestled, huh? Yeah, where'd you wrestle? How much do you weigh? What was your name? And he says, oh yeah, is that stuff phony or what? And I said, well, put it to you this way, Commander. Have I told the story before again? I said, well, put it to you this way, it's the second phoniest profession I was ever associated with. And he says, what's the first? Whatever, TWA right over your head. I thought it was a pretty good comeback myself.
Yeah.
But anyway. And that guy's name was, I can't think of his name. He came out of the youth division.
Hollingsworth. Was
Yeah, that's it. James Hollingsworth? Hollingsworth.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget.
Mr. Clean himself. Of course, it was okay for his tag team to pick him up from the airport. I witnessed that, Too late now. Statute of limitations is running all that. So, let's see. Before we get on to Thanksgiving, we don't want to go too early because the turkey is still in the oven, right, John? Turkey's still in the oven?
Yep.
Okay, baste it one more time, maybe we'll be able to take it out then. Let's see now. What do we have recently? We had some midterm elections. Any surprises out there, Bill?
Oh, a lot of surprises. It's something that I'm so glad it's over with.
Yeah.
I would like to have 1% of the monies that were spent on TV and radio ads and such. That seems to be where it is. But now we have another one coming up.
Yeah, mayoral.
Mayoral,
Are you running?
aldermanic.
Anybody
No,
running out here? Anybody
I'm out of politics.
Are you?
There's no
but there's
politicians
Chicago.
anymore. We used to have politicians that were statesmen.
Yeah.
We just don't have that anymore. They're all just politicians with a lot of money that can spend a lot of money, and I guess you can't get elected unless you have a ton of dough.
And they don't negotiate. It's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
They're not opponents. They're enemies.
Yeah. What about what do you have to say of that, Tom?
Well, again, Bill was talking about the political ads. Watching these ads, I have come to the conclusion that the best way for success in politics is to just flat out lie. I mean, it's working. I mean, our last president, supposedly his major accomplishment, the health care bill, that was achieved through a absolute flat out lie. If you want your doctor, you can keep your doctor. The average premium will go down by $2,500. And he knew it was a lie when he said it, but that was the only way that it would pass. Just to flat out lie. I mean, it works.
It seemed like the public was getting their belly full of that, as evidenced by our last presidential election, because whether they like the guy or not, this guy got elected, that is President Trump, got elected by not talking like a politician, not acting like a politician.
Like a businessman.
Well, yeah, right. Well, what's wrong with that?
That's what we need.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
That's why the stock market is...
our newly elected governor, JB, he achieved something that's, well, of course, I guess he's not the only one, but he got elected as a Democrat by telling people that he was planning on raising taxes before he got elected. Usually, Democratic politicians wait until after they're elected to tell you they're going to raise your taxes, but he actually said before he was going to raise taxes, and he got elected. Now, I was thinking to myself, now, why would anyone vote for someone that said they were going to raise their taxes? And then it dawned on me that if you don't pay taxes, it doesn't make any difference. What do you care? Yeah, we're going to get the rich guys. He's talking about a graduated income tax. They have a graduated state income tax in the state of California. And I believe the top is it 16? I think it's 13 or 16%. But the bottom is 6.9.
Right.
So if they're going to, we're paying 4.9 now. So, it just stands to reason that if they are going to raise the top level taxes, they are also going to raise the bottom level.
Right.
Well, the problem is that Democratic politicians, liberal politicians, say, we're just going to tax the rich. And middle-class voters, unfortunately, large numbers of middle-class voters don't understand that in the eyes of the left, they're rich.
Right.
Right.
They're part of the rich.
That's right.
Romney got into a great deal of trouble in 2012 for telling the truth. He did it in a sort of a private gathering. It wasn't
Right.
a publicly tell, but someone had a. Nowadays, everyone has technology. Everyone can take a video. He got in trouble for telling the truth, which was that in the most recent year at that time, roughly, I don't know, it's 45% of people with income, people who had income, do not pay federal income taxes. So if you don't pay federal income taxes, you obviously don't pay state income taxes. And so if someone is going to, as you say, someone is going to raise taxes, it means absolutely nothing to you because you don't pay taxes.
And the
Well,
thing about it, he has a supermajority in both houses, so he can do anything he wants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
No, he does, yeah.
plus what's so unique about the city of Chicago, other than the fact that there's about 87 people running for mayor, the city treasurer, Dorothy Brown, this could only happen in Chicago. Dorothy Brown is under investigation for improprieties in her office. So you are under investigation. Oh, really? Well, I think I'll run for mayor. This is like insanity. Preckwinkle, with the board, she openly admitted when she had she touted and got passed the soft drink tax, and then when they repealed it,
Oh, yeah.
she said, well, if they repeal that tax, I'm going to have to lay off people. She openly admitted that she cannot operate under the budget that she is given. I mean, she just openly admitted it. You're going to have to lay off people. Well, that's kind of how it works. I mean, when the politicians, and the majority of them that say this, are Democrats, well, we had no alternative but to raise taxes. I say that's the equivalent of going into your boss and saying, you know what, I was going over my bills and I'm really not cutting it, so the only alternative is you're going to have to give me a raise. Well, what do you think the boss would say?
There's two alternatives.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, and that's the thing. But she admitted, I cannot operate under. I have to raise taxes to operate my office.
Of course.
And she also said, and you know what? I think I'll run for mayor. and people actually vote for. Well, again, if you don't pay any taxes, you don't care. I guess they can have her vote, but like I say, it's of course they also say about Chicago. You know, Chicago politics is a sport. You know, I mean it's funny when you go around the country and you meet other Chicagoans, and they say that in certain areas in this country they can't find anybody that wants to run for a mayor of a town. You know, because, but like I said, what's the motto of Chicago? I got mine, you get yours. I mean, it's the only reason. Why would you want to run for some of these positions?
What are there?
The city's bankrupt, the state is bankrupt. But there are people in government that think that the purpose of being in government is to decide how much you want to spend. And then it's just up to the taxpayers to pony up the money and meet the demand of what you have.
Open-ended expense account.
Yeah.
Even
The idea of reducing that would never even occur. What do you mean cut? What do you mean
Right.
reduce?
Yeah, we'd have.
We're here to increase spending.
Right, I would have to lay people off.
Yeah, that's
even
right.
the little towns. I live in Oak Park, and I listen to the board meetings, and they weren't quite maybe they were bragging that they're spending $20 million more than their income.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be if they did that, you would have a chance in hell of getting reelected. But now,
Yeah, deficit spending, which means I'm spending more than I'm making.
Yeah.
right, and who's going to end up paying for it in the end?
Guess.
Well,
Look
and
in the mirror.
With that and then some.
the federal government can get away with it because they can print money. They can print
That's
as
right.
much money. They can borrow money.
Right.
But eventually, we're reaching a point. The national debt is now over. I think it's reached $21 trillion. We've gotten by through the Obama years because interest rates were virtually zero. So it wasn't costing much of anything to service that debt. But interest rates are going up. And what happens a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now? Interest rates hit 4 or 5%. We all remember when basic interest rates were 5%. 5% on $20 trillion is $1 trillion. It's going to cost the government $1 trillion just to pay the interest on the debt. And when and it just then the debt just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting until you wake up one morning and you're Greece.
By the
Your
way,
Greece.
anything to add there, Rich? Announcer Rich?
No, I think the only time we were not in deficit spending was a couple of budgets under the Clinton years. So this is going back
thanks
pretty
to
far
a
now.
guy named Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in the Congress, yeah. I remember, yeah, you're right. So whatever happened to the idea of here's one for you. What happened to the idea of a balanced budget amendment?
That doesn't seem to
Somebody
have gone very
has one
far.
of them, doesn't they?
Amendment, you know.
There's none in the federal government, is there? Or
That's what we're talking about.
No,
The Constitution.
Now, when Clinton was in, did he actually balance the budget, or was that,
They did, yeah.
or was that
briefly.
paperwork?
He had trouble
years,
balancing somebody else, but Newt Gingrich was the was
Yeah,
the
it was a
guy that
Republican.
was the
It was a Republican
brains
Congress.
behind there. Yeah.
Right.
How are you going to persuade voters that balancing the budget is a good idea when large numbers of those voters benefit from the money that's
Yeah.
being shoveled out by the federal government into their pockets? How are you going to convince them it's a good idea to cut
And they vote, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Has anybody made a study of the average person, what their debt is?
With their what?
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there's
You
a-
think the average
Oh yeah, there's
would
yes.
have a debt, or would
Yes.
they be?
There's all kinds of studies about that credit card debt, personal debt. Oh yeah,
Under
there's
1,000
that.
easily, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That
think
was just
I
one
think
about every
credit.
household who
Yeah,
owns so much.
I think credit card debt is what is it? It's 16,000 or something average.
Wow.
Well, another scary statistic is people approaching retirement age. the statistic is frightening of the how few people have enough money to retire on. I
I know
mean,
one.
you know, if you, I mean, like $500,000. If you have like an IRA with $500,000, that's really nothing. You know.
No.
You have to survive for
Thomas.
20+ years.
What's the IRA got to do with that? You're putting in the politics in Ireland. The old country even to it, no.
You know, there's a good program on Saturday that, and the guy talks about all of this about retiring and how much you
Radio or
need and
TV?
that. Radio
And
on WLS,
Yeah.
and he does a good job. Very.
Yeah, what's her name is pretty good.
Bill Brinker, I think,
Susie
something like that,
Orman.
yeah.
She seems kind of rational
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah,
Believable.
and what everybody says, you know, financial planners, they say start when you're young. You know, there's an interesting statistic. If someone put a certain amount of money, pick a figure, into a bank account every year between the ages of 20 and 30, and just left it there, and the next person put in the exact same amount between the ages of 30 and 60, which is a significantly longer period of time, the person that put the money in between 20 and 30 would have more money than that person.
I don't think you could do it now when you get 1/10 of 1% interest on your savings account.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
know
they're
it is.
talking about invest,
Yeah.
not savings account. You know,
it's too late for all of us anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
I asked the banker. I said, "Well, you know,
Except Kate.
you raised my interest on the it's credit card loan." I said, "Are they going to give that interest the same amount to my savings account?" Well, no, that's a different idea altogether.
Yeah,
So
right.
it seems to me when it benefits you, it's a good idea, but when it benefits me, that's a different idea altogether.
well, I mean, again, talking about our former president and how little he actually knew about anything.
Do we really have to?
But it's interesting to show, I mean, really, how naive he was about things, because when he was talking about his health care, you know, commonly known as Obamacare,
Affordable Care Act.
he had absolutely no idea, zero idea of how insurance companies work. And one of the reasons that I do know how they work is because I worked for one, and I have some very good friends that were very high-level executives in insurance companies. And one thing you have to know about insurance companies is insurance companies are not in the business of insuring people. However shocking that may be, they are in the business of making money and investing money. That's the business that they're in. So when Obama talked about signing people up for health care, and we signed up 300,000 or whatever, you know, it's ridiculous to have a very fast analogy. It would be like hiring someone to sell life insurance.
Well, it's like the idea that a bank is there to provide interest to their depositors. That's
No,
their
they're-
function, is to give interest to their
But
depositors.
if you hire someone to sell life insurance, and the next day they come in and they say, "Hey, I signed up 500 people for life insurance," he says, "Wow, that's fantastic. Where did you do it?" He says, "At the Cancer Institute of America." You did what? Again, but I know that's funny, but it shows how little Obama knew about that. You do not want to sign people up for insurance that actually need it. You don't want those
Right.
people. You want to sign people up for insurance that don't need it.
AKA young people.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What you just said about investing, companies investing the money they get. My partner, Casey Janota, by the way, who's been in the hospital, he had a leg taken off. He's got a bad circulation problem. Born in 1955, so he's not that. 63 now, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, everybody say a prayer for Casey. Anyway, we were taking a report for a guy at 49th or 48th in King Drive, old South Park. He had one of those brownstones. And black area. He was saying, "You know something, officer? You know who's buying that property around here? Allstate Insurance." They were speculating on the properties there then. This is like 1978, 79. So, what you just said,
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
was an example. By the way, before you go any further, or is that farther? Further. Yes, let's walk a little farther before we discuss this any further. That's what I remember. We had someone was tardy. He was going to be docked and was paid. You identify yourself, mister.
Yes, well, the tardy individual is tardy largely because he had to transport the host of our show in order to be here on time, so that he could get here on time and make snide remarks about the individual who provided him with a ride, having the effrontery to be. But we won't go into that. We won't go into that.
We'll pass on that.
This is John S. Kacholka, who is here with you and proud to be a part of Meet the Chicago Historians. And I, too, am a history major and have a master's degree and was a state representative and a town official for many years. And like several of the people at this table, maybe just about everybody at the table, we are all alumni of the old, great WJJG radio station, which we all remember very fondly. And we're here in the John DeVita Broadcast Center.
Here.
That means you are our resident recovering politician. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
You're never a politician, though, were you?
I'm not resident because I don't live in this
Well, I mean,
particular
you do
environment,
once a month.
and I don't know that I'm recovering from it. I don't know that I don't know that anyone ever recovers from it. I heard you talk about politicians lying, and I had a good friend who held public office who said that when a politician is scratching his ear, he's telling the truth. If you see a politician and he kind of strokes his eyebrow, he's telling the truth. If a politician kind of scratches the side of his face, he's telling the truth. It's when his lips are moving that he's lying.
Yeah.
So,
Good point.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Tim.
Unfortunately, that sort of reputation and attitude probably prevents a lot of people from even entering public life.
Well, that's what I said earlier. I said the best way to win elections is put commercials out where you just flat out lie. I like JB's commercial when he talked with his very serious voice, and he said, when I was young, what did he say, 13 or 17, whatever he was, when I was young, my father passed away, and I had to step in, and then my mother lost her job, And if you didn't know his background, you'd think, well, gee, would you work in the warehouse at Costco or something?
Yeah.
Every time I see that, my wife yelled at me. I scream at the screen, "You were a billionaire!"
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, you know what his mother's job was? She was a librarian in the Pritzker Library or
I was
something.
going to say, she had a job in Pritzker.
How did she lose that job? Did she talk in the library or what? I don't know. I mean, okay, well, I felt bad for somebody losing their father.
Yeah, of course.
I feel bad for someone whose mother was struck with alcoholism.
But it's very deceptive when the people might not know who you are and how wealthy your family is, to try to play on that sympathy and say, all I had to fall back on was the $4 billion that I had in my trust fund or
Right.
something.
I can't even comprehend $1 billion, let alone $4 billion.
Well,
Yeah, of course, you're sympathetic to anyone who loses a mother or a father.
Yeah.
But don't try to pretend that you're suffering in the same way as someone else who didn't have your resources and your wealth
plus
and your background.
I like the commercials. Well, it didn't work for Hillary, but I guess it worked for JB, showing him hugging black people and shaking hands with black people and hanging around with the
Walking down the
crowd
street in the West Side.
of black people. I said, after Hillary lost, how much contact did she ever have after losing the election with an African American? And my guess is zero. Again, it's deceiving. But if it works,
Campaign, so much about campaign, and we've seen all these ads over the recent weeks. They're all deceptive. They're all, and I don't know. Apparently, the people do negative ads because they work. The argument always is that the reason that politicians use negative ads is because they work.
Yeah.
But I get so tired. These ads in which somebody comes out and, my kid was sick, and Congressman McDuff didn't care. Congressman McDuff didn't care that my kid was sick.
Personally.
Yeah, he didn't come over and make my kid well, and I'm not voting for
He
Congressman.
personally voted the opposite
Yeah,
way.
he voted on a bill, and if that bill had been passed,
Who knows?
my kid wouldn't have gotten. Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe my kid wouldn't have gotten sick if he had voted for that bill.
Yeah.
they knew how to read a script.
Yeah.
Pardon me, gentlemen, the first interruption of the day.
Okay, here we go.
Now time for a brief intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
What color was the
Let's yell at it.
Oh, there's a good A&E's got something down about the Clintons right now. Did you see it? Anybody? It was on yesterday. It's a three-parter or something.
Hello,
All
friends.
about the bimbo eruptions.
Do you need new tires for your vehicle? How are the brakes? Are they in good condition? How's your front wheel alignment? Do you need your tires rotated? How are the shocks and struts? Do you need an oil and grease change? How about a tune-up? When was the last time you had your engine tuned up? How about the wiper blades? Are they nice, sharp blades to clean off the rain and snow? How are the headlights, tail lights, stop lights, turn directional signals? Are all the bulbs working? How's your cooling system and the exhaust system? How about your battery? Does that need to be upgraded? How about the belts and hoses, fuel injectors, timing belt and chain, and the air conditioning? Is that all working properly? Well, if you need any maintenance work done on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Service, which is located at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. They are on Grand Avenue on the north side of the street, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue. You can't miss the building. There's a big Goodyear sign right on top of the building. Or you can call area code 773-622-4361. Don, Chris, or Ken will be more than happy to assist you and to help you with any questions you might have about the maintenance on your vehicle. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 7 o'clock in the evening. Saturday, from 7:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And even on Sunday, from 9:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So once again, for any maintenance work you might need on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Supply. Once again, their address is at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue on the north side of the street. And their phone number is area code 773-622-4361. They have great service. Their mechanics are all certified mechanics, and they do quality work. Now, I've been going to Grand Tire with my vehicle since 1985, right up until this present day. So once again, Grand Tire and Auto Service at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. Their phone number is 773-622-4361. Don, Chris, and Ken will be more than happy to help you and to advise you on any maintenance work you might need on your vehicle. So once again, Grand Tire and Auto Service at 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue on the north side of the street. You can't miss the building because there's a big Goodyear sign on the top of the building. That's Grand Tire and Auto Service, 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, and their phone number is area code 773-622-4361. For quality service, it's Grand Tire Auto Service, 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, 773-622-4361. You will be completely satisfied with the work that they do.
Now back to our special edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. Jack?
Thank you, Richard. Richard, have you been? You got any Any old-time radio recreations coming up on the air here? Ooh, Plugola?
We have two coming up at Mathers Senior Center early next year.
Where's that?
There's one on Higgins right off of Harlem. The other one is on Central just north of Belmont. They'll be open to the public.
Yeah.
February 1st and late April.
That's a long ways away.
It is.
But
yeah.
I already told him that I can't be on his show. you
Yes,
see.
Jack?
Because, see, Don Wilson booked me at another occasion, and I just can't do it.
Oh, I'm
See.
sorry, John. It sounds like you're auditioning now.
Why'd you do that, Mr. Benny?
Oh. We've got a girl who does a great Rochester.
Yeah?
Can you believe that? Yeah.
Do you remember the character Beulah that's originated, I think, on Fibber McGee and Molly's
Right.
show? Became its own show?
Don't
I mean,
remember
it was
being
on
an own
TV
show.
as a Beulah, the maid.
Okay. That was
The
the guy.
original was a male white actor did the voice originally.
No, this.
On the TV, I remember as a really young kid, it was like Ethel Waters, all those three different casts they had.
Beulah.
Because they couldn't,
Oh, Beulah.
Beulah, do you remember that, do you, John?
I don't remember, but I've seen in books about early television, I've seen
She was-
references to
yeah.
Beulah. I
Uh,
don't remember the show.
Hattie McDaniel, Ethel Waters, and what's the other lady's name?
Isn't she also the maid who peeled Mae West a grape? Beulah, peel me a grape. That goes back. That goes back.
Well, talking about Jack Benny, I've been to Las Vegas many times. I've got a place out there, and I've seen every alleged great comedian in person. I mean, Johnny Carson, Buddy Hackett, who was funny, Don Rickles. By far the funniest, and I didn't even want to go see him, but I was with my parents, and they wanted to see him, was Jack Benny. Jack Benny was the funniest. No one even came close, and you really wouldn't think that. But he could do certain things, in the Las Vegas atmosphere that he could not tell. But they introduced him. They said, and now the world famous Congo Room at the Sahara Hotel is proud to present a man that needs no introduction. So he came out and he said, he says, I hear that every night. He says, but not everyone knows who I am, so for the people that don't know me, I'm Burt Reynolds. And then he said, and they say the world-famous Congo Room, he said, I guarantee you, if you walk out the front door, the first person you see, you ask them where the Congo Room is, they won't have the slightest idea. He says that means that some small town in Africa, they're sitting around talking about nothing but the Congo Room at the Sahara Hotel. And he went on from there. I mean, it was really funny.
Benny would be the first to credit his great writing staff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And supporting. He always made everyone in the cast got the laughs. He was usually the butt of the
butt
joke.
of that.
He was the butt of all the
that's
jokes.
right,
He
that's
created
right.
a character who was the victim of all
Yeah.
everybody else's
His
humor.
stingy persona,
I
they
will-
just
Yeah.
built on that.
I will say the funniest line of all the comedians was Buddy Hackett.
Hmm.
If you remember, he was the spokesperson for Frito-Lay. He used to do their commercials.
I missed that.
And he said, I was at the company convention, and they introduced me as the spokesperson, and it was the CEO of Frito-Lay. And I told him, I said, I love Frito-Lay, and he says, well, buddy, really? Do you really eat Frito-Lay? And he says, hey, for $50,000 a year, I'd eat dog shit.
Whoops.
Well, he says the phone rang the next morning. It was his agent, and he said, and as I said to him, "Hey, wait till you hear this line that I used last night at the convention." He says, "I heard it. You're fired."
But I know it's a different time and different age, but seems to me the iconic comedians jokes were all fairly clean.
Oh yeah.
Now it's
yeah.
it's how
They had.
dirty.
I mean, these guys had long careers on radio, television, movies.
Right.
And he started in vaudeville.
And they never used off-color humor.
Right.
They never made fun of religion. They didn't get into politics.
Right.
They except in a very gentle way. They'd
Right.
poke a little bit of fun. But one of my favorite lines about Benny and showing him being the butt of the joke was they did a show once about how Dennis Day got his job as the singer on his show. And the first night Day is supposed to appear, he's late. He's not there. And when he finally shows up and he says, "Dennis, where were you? We're going on the air." "Oh, I was talking to my mother on the phone, Mr. Benny." Well, why? I had to tell her that I got a job working for America's greatest comedian. And Benny gets a big grin on his face. He says, "Oh, what did your mother say about that?" She asked me to get Bob Hope's autograph.
Right. That's typical. Yeah.
Eugene McNulty.
Yeah.
It was his real name.
Yeah.
The I don't know if you guys watch it, but there's a fairly new TV program now. It's called Funny You Should Ask, and it's all old time comedians almost. You know, this Bill Capel or whatever his name is. This Mike and Molly. Guy that plays Mike and Molly.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't think of the rest of them, but they come up with strange questions, and then these guys just
Get him out of the park.
Oh yeah, it's a really funny show, and it's on
What is
a
that
couple
on?
of times a day.
Well, that's Funny You Should Ask?
Funny You Should Ask. Yeah,
Well, you know, you talk about
very well run.
comedians. I haven't watched a late night television show
No.
in years
Not
because
much.
it's all politics, and,
Yeah.
it's very mean spirited.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, Johnny Carson, occasionally, even Bob Hope, he would tell jokes. As a matter of fact, there was some line of it. Actually, it was in a movie that Bob Hope said, "What are they, Democrats?" But I mean, it was humorous. It wasn't like personal attacks.
Yeah, they were good natured. They were good natured, and they did it to both sides. They didn't
Yeah.
make
Right,
a point
there
of
you
just
go.
picking
That-
on
And I
one
mean,
of
like the
ours.
show, like The View, making fun of the first lady's accent. I mean, seriously?
Yeah.
What if they? I mean, it's just it's beyond ridiculous.
Yeah,
Sure,
but
well,
you got to
how-
realize the morons that are on that show, though, too, Tom. You know.
I believe it's only going to get worse.
I used to follow David Letterman religiously, and then he got to be a hitman for the demos. And
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
he, the one, this is the end when he said Sarah Palin's daughter was at the show, and she was in the balcony and got knocked up by Alex Rodriguez during the commercial. It's some ridiculously stupid.
3-4 years into the
was
Obama
it.
administration, he was still doing jokes about Bush. He was still doing jokes about Bush and about Cheney, and never a joke about the great and charismatic Barack Obama.
You mean the most intelligent man in the world?
Oh yeah, the greatest community organizer
Oh,
the
yeah.
world has ever.
Well, that community organizer thing, they pass it off like he's some kind of he's devoting his time, and they get some whatever the degree they get. It could be anything. Then they go out and they work for some community organization. They move in the area. Now, all the time, they're not getting paid much, but they're going around talking to people all the time, organizing meetings, getting on issues. Now, this makes them some kind of an expert. Now, next thing you know, they run for their first office. That's the plan there.
Yeah.
I've seen people that pull that stuff. Myself. Anybody else?
Well,
I think a lot of your politicians right now do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like Obama. Again, talking about lying. Barack Obama is now going around taking credit for something that he said was impossible to
The
happen.
economy.
Now go figure that. Something that you said was impossible to happen, you're taking credit that it actually did happen.
We had to get accustomed to 2% growth because that was the limit. You're never going to see 3, 4, 5% growth in this country ever again.
You'll never bring manufacturing jobs back.
And when it
what's
does happen,
yeah,
it's thanks to me.
yeah. What has he got? Some magic wand? And then everyone laughed. Well, guess what? I guess he does have a magic wand.
They
They're working
mentioned
it-
on the radio this morning that the unemployment rate is down the lowest it has ever
50
been in
years.
Right.
50 years.
And many minority
There's an
groups.
old
And-
saying: if you tell a lie enough times,
Oh, yeah.
people start to
Yeah.
believe it
Oh,
as
yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Tell a big one, too.
Big lie.
Well, if you're going to do it a big one.
Well, and again, it's perception. By every measure and every standard, blacks in this country were better off under Bush than they were under Obama. By any measure, household income, education, employment, any measure you want, they were better off under Bush than Obama. But they idolized Obama.
If we had ever seen the kind of economy we have today under Obama, the media would have been trumpeting it morning, noon, and night. You wouldn't have been able to turn on a newscast without them showering accolades on Barack Obama. But because it's under Trump, it's in the, it's buried in at the bottom of the news, and it happened, and we don't know how it happened, and the economy's up, and Democrats.
But watch that
say-
stock market.
Yeah,
and,
oh, yeah.
Watch the yellow. You always look for. I know. Anyway, let's move on a little bit right now, and we can start about Thanksgiving. Is the turkey just about done, John? Did you baste it again?
It's gone.
It's gone. Oh, it's gone already. Where'd it go? What a turkey. Anyway,
They say it was delicious.
as Ben Franklin had his way, that would have been our national bird, the turkey.
Right.
You guys are a couple of people here at the table are Irish, and where did this word turkey come from? Calling a guy that is
From Ireland.
from Ireland a turkey.
I can
I think because
answer.
they're dumb.
You got it?
I can answer. I can
I
answer
missed
that
that.
question
When did
Here.
that
by the
never knew
When
that.
does turkey become a
by the bro-
When did that become?
by the brogue, the goblin with the the talking it sounds like
Is
a
that what it
turkey.
was?
And
That's
also
what it
and
is.
also
Okay.
the red neck.
Yeah.
It was, oh,
That's
And if
the
you leave
reason.
a turkey out in the rain, it'll look up and drown.
This I've heard. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, that's the reason for that.
Oh, okay. I can see that now. Yeah.
Stupid bird.
oh, yes.
Tasty.
So how about terrier? So turkeys, terriers, potato pickers. What else?
Narrowback. Well, American,
No, that's us.
Americans. Yeah,
That's you and
American
me.
Irish were narrowback.
Oh, is it arrowback or narrowback?
Narrow.
Narrowback.
Narrowback.
Now,
What do you mean?
What the heck did that come from?
I don't know. They got much narrow backs
Never
than
heard
us.
any
Yeah.
of these.
But very sinewy, but no. narrower.
Thanksgiving was usually done like in September, wasn't it? When they were working with the Indians or something like that.
No.
Or
Well,
The
There
ver-
wa-
at harvest.
It was earlier.
Yeah, harvest. Yeah,
Well,
I know Thanksgiving in Canada is in October sometime.
right.
there are two strains that produce the American Thanksgiving. One is what was called a harvest festival.
Yeah,
At the end of the
That's
the
what I was
harvest in the
thinking.
fall, you would have a banquet. You would enjoy the bounty that you had produced. The idea of a Thanksgiving is a separate idea. Thanksgivings were days that kings or princes would declare a day of Thanksgiving because they'd won a victory in a war
Right.
or some great event had happened, and that was more religious. That was, you would go to church, you would give
Right.
thanks to God for the blessings. So we've combined those two things with the story of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims had finally had a bountiful harvest. The Pilgrims, our Thanksgiving took place the second year. The Pilgrims had been here for a
Right.
year. They had suffered grievously.
Right.
They had suffered tremendous losses, illness and disease. They arrived in winter. They arrived much further north. They thought they were going to Virginia. They had booked passage to come to Virginia, and instead they wind up in Massachusetts late in the season when it's cold. So they suffered very, very harshly during a harsh winter.
Right.
And in that following year, the fact that they were able to grow crops and then through the help of the Indians, they were able to survive,
Right.
they wanted to give thanks. So these two ideas became combined in the American tradition, the harvest festival and the giving of thanks.
We'll give thanks to God then.
Giving thanks
Right.
to
Now
God.
we there was one little situation, one element that was added in there. Their first year, after that terrible winter of 1609, 1610, they had collective farming. You have to go out and work this farm, put it in a
Right.
common storehouse. Well, it got to be that if whatever his name next door to you started knocking on early, I'm going to do the same thing, and nothing was getting done.
Common, yeah.
The next year they went out and they said, "You work your land, you keep your bounty." Well, now went through the ceiling because
Right.
the big difference between private enterprise, you want to call it, and
Right.
collectivism.
I don't know what year it
As we
was,
call it,
but
socialism.
they had their warehouses or barns full of stuff, and didn't they burn one during the winter, and people were starving again?
I haven't heard that
No,
story, but it's
no.
very possible. They
Right.
Yeah. But they did, as John said, they had arrived 1609, 250 miles north of where they were supposed to be, something like that. They had sick people. They couldn't get off the ship. Many. Then they had very little shelter made by the time the actual winter hit, which wasn't that long.
Right.
After, was it September they arrived, or
Well, there, yeah,
instead
that
of arriving in March, when it was going to get warmer, right?
not up there. I don't think, because it's pretty high.
I just
or
looked
pretty
it up.
high.
If I'm not mistaken, they arrived in December.
No, I think
Because
it's a little earlier.
Forefathers' Day is which is the anniversary. I think is in December. They arrived in very cold weather,
Right.
and it was hard for them to even to chop lumber and build
Right.
homes and build shelters for
Right.
the people.
Plus, when so many people were sick, how many died out of the 45 actual deaths? Or,
It was a tremendous number.
I think
tremendous
somebody said
percentage.
it was almost 50% of
Many
them.
of the women died. It was many of the women
Right.
who died and children because they were least able to survive the cold.
Was Indian Summer an actual event, or is it just some writer's
Indian Summer?
That's an
imagination?
old
Indian Summer.
old idea that the
John McCutcheon's
the
cartoon.
first
Yeah,
the
right.
first burst of warm weather after the
First frost.
Frost,
You
right.
get the first frost, and then
That's
you get
Indian summer,
you
yeah.
get a reprise of warm weather after that.
Right.
That was called Indian
Indian
summer.
When's ours coming?
I think it's gone,
We're gonna
and
get one
Come
this
and
year?
gone.
I think it's going to return next June. I think that'll be our Indian summer.
If
Yeah,
we're
the-
lucky.
The cartoon you
for,
referred to, Indian Summer by John T. McCutcheon.
They no longer
It was,
run.
the Historical Society used to have prints of that, but they won't do it now. But you can get it through the Tribune. Used to be every November or
Yeah.
something.
No,
It would be on the
we-
cover of the
no, even
Tribune.
earlier
in
than
the
that.
magazine
Maybe
section.
They
you
don't
know.
do it
September,
anymore.
It used to be
October.
on the front page of the
Of the
Tribune.
magazine.
I know.
Of the rotogravure. Yeah.
I know. Irish summer is March 17th. So
What is it?
Irish summer is March
Oh.
17th.
Oh,
What was that commemorate?
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
That lasts all March now, doesn't it?
That's right.
That's your busy time, right?
It's the St. Patrick's Day season.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
In military summer is March 4th. I know that's bad.
Chicago's birthday is March 4th also. March 4th, 1837.
Right.
I wonder if it's a mixture of legend or truth that at the first Thanksgiving dinner that Indians, Native Americans, were able to participate.
Yes.
I mean,
That's true.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
that's true.
Yeah, they.
They're-
All sources.
Yeah, they have name. They actually know their names. The name of one of them.
The Wampanoag Indians were the Indian tribe that was near there. Chief Massasoit. Massasoit was the chief of the Indian tribe. And there was a little bit of one-upmanship going on. I think there had been something in the way of an invitation, extended. And the Indians show up with a large number of Indian braves as if they want to impress
Right.
these colonists with the numbers that they have. And so to reciprocate, the colonists, the Pilgrims, put on a show for them. They exercised their arms because, Miles Standish was a soldier. And they put on a little display of their fire sticks,
Right.
which, of course, the Indians didn't have. So you read about this, that they had this exercise of arms and in the afternoon. Well, that was probably a way to indicate, well, sure, we may not have as many numbers as you do, but we have these little items here that might come in handy
Right.
if you get any ideas about taking our pumpkins away from us.
And now we call them mind games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did have people quibble about that we don't know what was served at the first Thanksgiving banquet. We know that turkeys were plentiful in the area. We know that pumpkins grew in the wild there.
Right.
We knew that the cranberries, of course, Massachusetts is noted for its
Right.
cranberries. So and corn was available as well. The Indians, so pretty much all the items we think of in the traditional Thanksgiving dinner were all present. Now, they may not have been present in the same way because they didn't have flour. They hadn't been able to grow wheat and have
So you had a
flour.
lot of venison too.
So they didn't have
probably.
pumpkin pie, perhaps, but they had pumpkin and turkey and cranberries and corn. So all the items that we think of as the traditional Thanksgiving dinner were almost certainly there at that first Thanksgiving. I always say, unfortunately, they didn't print any souvenir menus, for those in
Right.
attendance.
And I imagine there was a lot of fire water there too.
Ugh.
Liquor?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
No,
Ooh.
no, I don't think these were Puritans. They wouldn't. No,
Well,
they wouldn't
Those are
have.
drinking.
The
habits.
moonshiners were a lot down
No,
further down
they
south.
would-
Yeah.
They could drink privately, like have their rum or whatever, but they weren't supposed to be publicly drunk.
I've never read any reference. I mean, they hadn't had time to grow the kinds of things you would need.
Well, go to the
in
store.
order to produce
Well,
liquor.
Go to the liquor store.
Couldn't they have just gone to Baker Square for a pie?
Possibly.
I mean,
And what time was the football game?
Ooh.
that's right.
Well, interestingly,
That would've been
they
interesting.
talk about playing games after the banquet, and there's also a tradition that says that they played something with a pig's bladder that may actually have been the forerunner of modern football. They actually may have kicked a ball around and played with some sort of an object that might have in
Right.
some way been kind of the beginnings of modern football. So that actually may have a tie into those.
So let's see, the Redskins
What did they
were there.
use to make the football stick to their hands, though?
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if they brought a whistle along with them or not. You know, I
So,
don't know.
so the Redskins played the Patriots, is that it?
I think that was
That's what it was.
that was
Well-
that's how it was listed in the newspapers
Yeah.
the following day.
Right.
Yeah. Who won?
Now, who was on first?
What's on second?
I don't know.
Third
Third
base.
base.
He's third base.
But anyway, yeah, a lot of that. But what I was saying before was trying to make the point that they tried this was the Plymouth Colony, by the way, a private company they were settling for, which eventually was merged into Massachusetts.
Because they came from Plymouth in England. They originated from
They
the
drove
town
to
of
Plymouth.
in England.
Right.
They did not drive a
No DeSoto's,
No,
Plymouth.
they didn't
DeSoto
have-
was
they didn't-
Southwest.
Chrysler had
They
not
probably
gotten
had a
the
few
concession
Dodges
yet.
here and there.
Anyway, but my point was here was a very early attempt at collectivism, socialism, if you want to call it, and gee, it worked real well then, didn't it? Like we should know about our health care being run by the government. Look at the VA, right? I mean,
Did it work real good then? They didn't use it too long,
No.
did they?
Well,
No,
well,
it's
that's
like
what
the
they
farming.
point.
That's what someone said about if socialism is so great, why isn't the march through Mexico headed south to Venezuela instead of north
Right.
to the capitalist country?
Why?
The caravan. Yeah.
They
Go-
followed
so-
the wrong end of the compass.
They're wearing out their welcome in Tijuana. There's
Yeah.
did you see that? Yeah.
They're wearing
Of course, they made it that far.
The Mexicans are, and I always knew that Mexicans were racist. Yeah. There's a Hispanic group that doesn't want another Hispanic group.
Yeah.
Go figure that out.
calls for them to be deported, and
Here, I want to know. Somebody want to know what's the definition of 14,000 people going to forcibly enter your country? I say it's an invasion.
not if you're
That's
the
what
little,
Trump
the little
called it.
fellow from the Washington Post. He begs to differ with you.
Does he?
Yeah, he says it's not an invasion.
What is it?
Yeah. I don't know. He seems to think the purpose of a presidential press conference is for reporters to
Oh, you're
debate the
talking. I know
president.
you're talking about.
Yeah, the fellow lost his press credentials, and then
Wasn't he here in Chicago for a while?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was.
You don't.
Well, they're Acosta.
Yeah.
They're criticizing Trump for making the comments about what are they carrying their flags if they seek asylum from this country? Why are they waving the flag of that country?
Of the country they're supposedly fleeing from. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't make sense. It's like being a Michigan fan, but going to a Notre Dame pep rally because they've got good food and free drinks, and then asking them to play the Michigan fight song, asking Notre Dame's band to play the Michigan fight song.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
Good analogy.
Makes sense
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. I mean, Thanksgiving. It's a good point because we welcome people that want to adopt
Americans.
Americans and accept our values in our customs. And the problem is that's not what they want to. They want to change they want to accept all the benefits of living in the United States, but they don't want to accept any of the responsibilities.
Well, also, you can't
Well, the
apply.
pol-
You can't apply for asylum in the United States or anywhere else because you're poor, or because there's a lot of crime where you can't. That's if you accept the notion that people who want a better life, that they all have a right to come to the United States. We'll have 95% of the population of the world all in the United States.
They interviewed some of the people in the caravan, and that's exactly what they said.
You want a better life.
Jobs, a better economy, and like you said, that's not reason for
You're supposed to be
asylum.
fleeing political oppression.
Then
You're
bring back Ellis Island.
Yeah.
Well,
Bring it back.
supposedly they're supposed to be
You know-
vetted at the border. They're supposed to be interviewed and say, if they're legitimate. But
You talk about Ellis Island when they came over on the ships. They had first class, they had second class, and they had steerage. If you were well off enough to go first class, you didn't go through Ellis Island. You went right to New York City.
Yeah.
And then second class and steerage, they had to go through Ellis Island.
My mother's parents came here before the First World War. I think it was like 1906 from Austria. And I don't think they were first class. They did go through Ellis Island.
Right.
My brother, they had a copy of this document that says my grandfather was disavowing any allegiance to Emperor Franz Joseph. right? You know,
Right.
at
Yeah,
the time.
you had to renounce allegiance to any foreign
And
king.
that's the German side. But our own experience, my wife and myself, our kids went to St. Rita grade school, where the parish school is at 63rd and Fairfield. Not the high school now, the boys' school, but the same relation. But anyway, while we were there, we knew people, parents, who they themselves or their parents were immigrants to the country from Lithuania, Mexico, Poland, Ireland,
and
the Philippines and Korea, all these countries.
Right.
Everybody you talk to, they thought everyone should go through the same process that their folks did.
Right.
This is nonsense, you know. I remember Cesar Chavez even referred to the illegals coming in working as wetbacks. I remember that one.
Well, the problem is that one of our two political parties looks at every one of those who are crossing our borders as future voters.
Right.
no,
They are
present voters.
well.
Exactly.
Oh, pardon me, gentlemen. It's that time when I must interrupt. We'll be right back after these messages of interest and importance.
Well, the one thing with all these
Gentlemen,
groups, dependent upon the government to give them money.
Hello, friends. Are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street or call 708-383-3638. Phil Berry will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price list, NCR forms, sale sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And he also has 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And his complete bindery service includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, call or see Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. They are located at Madison Street and Clarence, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And that's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or give Phil Berry a call at 708-383-3638. For all your printing needs, the printing store is there to help you. They're 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois. And once again, you can call Phil Berry at 708-383-3638.
Later in the show.
Now back to our discussion. Jack?
How about General Grant and his drinking? Well, find out what he drinks and send every general was a case. How's that? Anyway, we're talking. That was the end of a joke of a Bob Newhart routine. We were discussing what? Illegal immigration now and situation of immigration in general. Well,
Wow.
For one thing, no one is against immigration. Period.
Because most of us here
Legal.
are related.
Under control.
Yeah.
Legal and regulated immigration.
Like dating
Well,
back.
the majority of legal Mexican immigrants are in favor of what we were just talking about,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
legal entry, because most of them had to go through it.
Right.
They frown on illegal immigrants, but the thing is, the one of the reasons the small business. What's the official name of that group? Small business
Administration?
No, it's not administration. Association. Anyway, they are in favor of any type of immigration because someone that's very knowledgeable about the restaurant situation in downtown Chicago, they told me there is not one restaurant in downtown Chicago that would be able to operate without illegals working there. Like half of the work, all the kitchen help, all the bus boys, all the maintenance people are all illegal.
And I believe that's probably your landscapers and,
Right.
you know, a lot of other careers. You know, it's the farmers would be down and out without that.
Well, they are now. They're having trouble getting people to pick their crops.
Yep.
Well, they had a Bracero program years ago where the people could come, you know, on a visa to work, didn't they?
Right, but they never went back.
Yes, they did.
I don't know. They never they didn't go
Yeah,
back to,
and that program,
to
That
Mexico.
program they do.
yeah, that particular program,
Yeah.
they,
We know there
they
are always
did.
some that won't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of out of control now. I know we had a visiting priest over at St. Daniel's, and good guy, but he's, you know, what do the Reds call these people? Useful idiots.
Useful idiots.
Because they got this goody good two shoes, and he's criticizing. Was in California or wherever it was that some communities were blockading these buses from coming in, and we don't know who's on the buses. They don't know who's coming in. The Fed doesn't even know. Well, here's what happened. They get to the border. Without identification, they give a name. So, Rosa Gomez, Juan Valdez, whatever it was. They written a citation, notice to appear. No bond, no printing. Where'd they go?
Catch and release.
How many people ever went to court? None.
Yeah. Well, that's what Trump said. He said no more catch and release.
Yeah. Catch and release is the best description there of all. It was just like one vicious circle.
But the thing is, that when these politicians talking about, you know, a path to citizenship, and they're one of the reasons they will learn how to speak English. Are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? They don't. I will have a doctorate in quantum physics before these people are speaking English. And the reason that they don't speak English is they don't have to.
Mhm.
You go down 18th Street or 26th Street or whatever. There's nothing. No one speaks English. There's no signage in English. It's all in Spanish.
Right.
And now, when a police officer can't even ask someone if they're here legally, how can how are you going to be able to enforce that they're all going to learn how to speak English? It's ridiculous.
You don't have to show ID to vote in Illinois now, right?
No.
That's right.
Yeah, an ID to you have to have your ID, a library card. You have to have an ID to rent at your local video store. You have to have your ID for what else? Now,
But
come on,
for
let's-
something trivial like casting a vote for president of the United States,
No,
why should you
no,
have to
you
show
mean-
an ID for that?
I want to
That would
go
clearly be an
the next
infringement.
the next Democratic National Convention. I want to go walk in and
Yeah.
and,
Just roll in, sure.
cast a vote. I'll
Sure,
I'll just pick a
of course.
state.
Yeah.
And then if
No
they say,
ID.
and then if they criticize me, I'll say, oh, you want to suppress? You want to suppress voting?
Yeah.
I mean,
And Jimmy
That's
Carter,
what-
former president, who was involved with elections around the world or whatever. There were one country, I forget where it was. His one criticism was that they should have IDs to vote there. Remember? There's Carter talking now, not John Ryan, not Donald Trump.
when Harold Washington
Not Don Peters.
defeated Bernie Epton, there were two detectives from Area 1. Just Bernie lost by about 30,000 votes. Just going over the voter registration with no investigation at all other than addresses, they found like 30,000, for example, the address is 1520 North 63rd Street. Just by that, the address doesn't exist. They were registering. They had buses from college campuses, from the University of Illinois, University of Wisconsin, Purdue, Notre Dame, come to Chicago and register so you can vote for this historic election to elect the first black mayor. So when they got to Chicago, they said, "What's your address?" And they said, 3720 Northwest Highway, Miami, Florida. And they said, well, wait a second, you got to live in Chicago. Oh, well, no one told us that. Well, that's all right. So they just registered them all to fictitious addresses.
Do you know who said?
And then
who mentioned
election
that?
day, they bust them all back to vote.
You want to deny someone's right to vote just because they're fictitious?
Yeah,
I mean, or
right.
because
Oh,
they're
wait a minute
dead?
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
Chicago has never denied a voter the right to vote simply because the voter died. I mean,
Well,
they've always-
I told this before, and Eddie Burke tells the story. He said he ran into one of his former constituents, a woman that was in her 80s. Did she move to Indiana? And she's told him, Eddie, when I die, please bury me in Chicago because I want to stay active in politics.
Beautiful. That's a good one.
But
Eddie Burke tells that story.
this is by
You know,
no way
when you go
new.
vote, I'm sure you guys went to vote this last one, but when you go down or when you go in to vote, they'll register you right there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
something
need
new.
anything
Yeah.
else.
Nonsense.
You know, and then
Yeah.
okay, go on over here. We'll give you a ballot.
Well,
Remember
that's what I
that
said,
gentleman, Long John Wentworth,
Former mayor. Yeah.
former mayor, and allegedly
Oh, in
he
the last election.
he printed
Still
up a bunch
registered.
of counterfeit IDs, and that's what got Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, and the convention.
Convention.
The
Wigwam,
yeah.
wigwam,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I
I'm sure
said
there's-
I said the
a
quick,
long tradition of Chicago politics.
Sure.
That's right.
I said the quickest way to stop the caravan from coming to the country is register them all as Republicans.
Get them
the
before
wall will be built
Democrats.
tomorrow.
That's for sure.
Going back to the Thanksgiving table,
There we go.
we've got Native Americans participating, Indians. Do you think women were sitting along with the men at
Sure
this
they
table?
were.
And maybe the kids were at a card table off to the side. But I'm trying to get the image of this.
There were very few women left by the time of the first Thanksgiving. Most a preponderance of those who died were women. So there were
That makes
actually
sense.
very few women, and so the presumption is they were doing the cooking because there simply wasn't.
Sure,
Yeah,
they
there
were
were
all in the
any women
kitchen.
left. Yeah.
That's where they belong.
Yeah, but
There we go. There you go. The good old days.
But they suffered. They suffered disproportionately.
Yeah,
the
that's a
women
good point.
from the privations
Yeah.
and the hardship and the cold and the.
right.
And these were the
everything.
pilgrims.
But it was no picnic,
Puritans.
no pun intended for
And they-
either one of them.
Pilgrims is a term, they at the time did not refer to themselves as pilgrims. They were Puritans, or they called themselves saints. About half of the people on the Mayflower called themselves saints, which is an interesting
interesting.
term. They were the religious believers. And about half of those who had come along for the ride were called strangers, because they were the ones who didn't subscribe to the Puritans. We tend to romanticize the Pilgrims, but the Puritans had worn out their welcome everywhere else they had been. They weren't welcome in England because they were hostile to the Church of England. They didn't worship according to the ways of the Church of England. They moved to Holland thinking that Holland was a more liberal environment, and they quickly burned out their welcome there, and the Dutch were tired of them because that was why they wound up sailing for the New World, a place where they wouldn't have to deal with anybody else, where they would be able to conduct their lives as they wanted without the interference. But about half of them were called strangers, including Miles Standish, the famous soldier. He was not
He was an
a
outsider
Puritan.
then, huh?
He was one of the outsiders. And it came around the time of American independence, around the end of the 18th century, is when the word pilgrim came to be used for both groups. They just lumped them all together as the Pilgrims. And that's where you get this notion of the Pilgrim Fathers. From the 17th century when they landed until pretty much the end of the 18th century, they were largely forgotten. They were remembered in Massachusetts and in the
Right.
Plymouth area, but they didn't become forefathers respected throughout the whole country until around the time of American independence. And the reason is we're declaring a new country. We're declaring our independence. We're a new nation. A new nation wants ancestors. You want forefathers. You want something to look back on. And here was the story of these religious dissenters who came to America to get freedom of religion, and it was perfect. So they were christened as the Pilgrims. They were
So-
all lumped together, and it's really around 1780 that you begin to get the popularization of the stories of the first Thanksgiving and how the end. All that we think of goes back really to that time. And
So
it
they were
built
looking for
after
some sort of artificial ancestry.
in
or-
a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We were looking not ancestors of our nation, ancestors of Americans, because
Right.
here we are in 1776, we're declaring our independence, we win a war, we're a new country. Well, even a new country wants to have something that they can look back on.
Right.
And so, presto,
But
the Pilgrims.
That's right. And I never knew John Wayne was that old.
No, there you go.
I
He?
I read that the Pilgrims actually made a lot of money in cosmetics because they marketed the Mayflower Compact.
Oh.
Don't Mormons refer to themselves as saints also?
Latter-day
I'm not
Saints.
certain, but
Something
yeah,
like
well,
that.
Latter-day Saints,
That's what
yeah,
they call
Church
them.
of Latter-day Saints, Church of Jesus.
Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints.
They
Right.
pointed out how in recent years they have expanded the type on Jesus Christ, because the accent used to be on Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That
Right.
was the punchline, was Latter-day Saints. In more recent years, they wanted to assert the fact that they are Christian, because a lot of fundamentalists, for example, don't consider Mormons to
I
be
know.
Christians.
Right.
Romney ran into this problem when he ran.
Yeah.
So, if you look at, I haven't actually researched it, but I understand if you look at their publications, their books, in recent years, they have printed the word Jesus Christ in much bigger type, because they want to emphasize that Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Now, I read that the Mormon was also like a derogatory term that they've kind of legitimized.
Maybe it's
Mormon.
not part of the title. It's not part
Yeah,
of
I'm saying, no.
yeah.
It was,
they were
Book of, well, it's the Book of Mormon. That's
who was the founder?
Joseph Smith?
Joseph Smith.
Smith.
Then you
Jesus
had,
must be the place.
Was it Tyrone
Nauvoo,
Power
Illinois.
or
This must be
Now,
the
who?
place.
Yeah.
what's his name? Brigham Young.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Brigham Young was
The
the
younger one.
successor to Joseph.
Yeah, he was named after the university, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, what was
Parents-
what was the name
Did
of
they
the
give
town in Illinois where they were persecuted?
Nauvoo.
Where they
In
fled.
Nauvoo.
Nauvoo,
Yeah, Nauvoo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mississippi,
first
right.
New York, then Illinois, and then the Promised Land.
You know
The
what?
story
Start
is
New
that
York, I think
Joseph
so.
Smith found these books, these golden books that were a new book of the New Testament. Found them, I think, out in like a forest, because he was on the East Coast, and that was the Book of Mormon,
That's weird.
which was the foundation of their faith. So
They'll send
the
you a
word-
copy of
the
that for
word
free.
Mormon does have a connection with the Book of Mormon.
Well, you know,
Right.
what a lot of people don't understand is, and it's kind of knowing anything at all about the Mormons, it's kind of shocking to find this out, but Las Vegas is run by Mormons. The Board of Supervisors of Clark County, I was watching one of their media, actually, there was one of the supervisors was leaving or retiring, and almost every one of the supervisors were quoting from the Book of Mormon.
Is Harry Reid a Mormon?
I think he is.
You know.
Hmm.
Oh, there's a
I
fine.
think he was.
There's
Yeah.
a fine example.
Yeah, but you would think Las Vegas, Mormons, like with
That's
gambling
what
and
it
drinking.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah.
think of the outfit.
You know how they ended up in Utah? They wanted to originally go to California. And they kept going, and they stopped, and they seen all these mountains. They says, this is good enough.
It was called
That was it.
Deseret. The original name of the state of Utah, if I recall correctly, was Deseret.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
And they changed that eventually. Of course, I'm sure everybody knows that they were denied statehood on the basis of polygamy, on the basis
They
of
had
the
to
fact that they
renounce that,
practiced
too.
polygamy. So that they
Because-
didn't renounce
yeah.
it. They discovered that a new interpretation that polygamy was no longer to be the rule of their faith. So they.
You know.
That's interesting.
I don't. It wasn't. They didn't. They just said, we've had this revelation. And
Too bad they didn't make it marriage.
What's wrong with them? If one wife is bad, more wives are good? I don't get
something
it.
along those lines.
How many ball of chains can you have there?
Actually, I had a certain skepticism. I remember there was a documentary about the Mormon religion on Channel 11 a few years back.
Sounds right. Yeah.
For example, in the Mormon Tabernacle, which is the center of their faith, only Mormons may actually enter the rooms where worship services.
This is right.
And apparently, what they do is secret. I mean, what their worship service consists of has never publicly. There are people who have left the faith who have given interpretations of it, but one of the things they do is they send missionaries all over the world.
Right.
And they pointed out that they had these missionaries in Paris. They were in Paris, and they were proselytizing people, and they were making fun of religions that have incense and vestments and stained glass windows.
Gee, who would that be?
Yeah, I'm just saying. It seems kind of odd. You would go to to a Catholic country, and that would be your selling line.
Really would ingratiate yourself,
is
right?
making fun of religions that have
Right.
vestments and incense and stained glass windows. So anyway.
Well, we had a woman come to the door. I filled out in the doctor's office something about some Bible for kids or Bible.
Yeah.
Next day she's there ready to sign us up, and I didn't have the money to give. It was in Richmond. Jennifer was real little at the time, and so anyway, she told me she was a Seventh-day Adventist because we want to get it back the way it's supposed to be on Saturday, not like other people. So right away, let's insult me the books at the same time.
Well, they're coming up if they come in too and they're dressed in suits. Except
what?
for the Mormons. It's the Mormons. No, what's the ones that come in?
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses are the ones that often
Yeah.
went house to house, yeah.
I suppose the reason that I remember that story. I've always had a positive attitude toward Mormons because they're a very law-abiding, a very moral people. I respect so much of their faith.
Industrious.
But when I found out that, and I have no problem with them sending missionaries out, but it seems to me you send missionaries to places where people have no faith. You send missionaries to there are so many places in the world
Like Africa.
where there's no religious belief or very little.
Right.
It seems to me that if you're a Christian religion, trying to belittle other Christian faiths, that's not what I think is the purpose of missionary work. I just found that offensive that they would go to other countries where the people are Christian, and not just try to tell them about what the good things are of our church, but to make fun of, to ridicule
No,
and
that's-
belittle the faith that presumably most of the people in this area are worshiping.
And on the
But it
top of that-
almost comes down to the point if you're not Jewish, or what do they call the group now?
when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Christian could mean a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Well-
I say, if you're not Jewish or
Muslim,
Muslim or
Buddhist,
something like that,
Hindu.
Well, to take that one step further, in Islam, they say it's in the Quran. You attempt to convert by the word, which then if
That's
that
a
doesn't work,
capital offense.
you convert by the sword.
right?
Because in Islam, I'm the only person I know that actually read the Quran. I've read it twice. Now, true Islam, they say, well, you didn't. You have to read it in Arabic or whatever, which is nonsense. But anyway, there is one true God, Allah, and His prophet is Muhammad. Now that's it.
Right.
If you're, it's
way
not
or that
well.
way.
Well, you're entitled to your religion, and I'm entitled. No. Forget that. There is. That's why they greet how they greet one another. There is only one. Salam alaikum, alaikum salam. So when they talk about, as a matter of fact, interesting. When I was working public vehicle, you deal a lot with cab drivers, and I said to one cab driver, I said, "Are you Muslim?" Yes. I said, "Is there anything in this is before I read the Quran?" I said, "Is there anything in the Quran about lying?" And he said, "Oh yes, you do not lie. It's bad to lie." And I said, "Well then, how come all of you guys, when I stop you, you never tell the truth?" He said, "Oh, it's okay to lie to you.
Yeah.
You are not. You
Can't lie to each other.
You're an unbeliever.
That's why the average normal person, when they see these films of someone beheading another individual, that's fine. That to them, it's like slaughtering a pig or a turkey. It's if you're not a follower of Muhammad and don't acknowledge Allah as the one true God, you're worthless.
Well, to them, that's following God's word then.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this woman in maybe you heard the story about this woman in Pakistan who was in jail for I think 3 or 4 or 5 years. I caught the story. I caught in the middle of the story when it was on the news. But she was in jail for years, and it's somewhere between 3 and 6 years. She's been in prison, and they finally released her. And there are mobs wanting to find out where she is so that they can kill her. And her offense was blasphemy.
Yeah.
The blasphemy was, I think she took water from a well that was reserved for Muslims, and a group of Muslims began insulting her and attacking her. And she said something. They knew she was a Christian. They attacked her for being a Christian, and she said, "Well, our Lord Jesus Christ died for me. What did Muhammad do for you?"
Yeah.
That was her offense. That was her offense, and she was sentenced to jail, and spent, as I say, somewhere in the vicinity of 4 or 5 years in jail. She was I think she had a life sentence. I think she was sentenced to life imprisonment, and they've recently released her. That was her offense. That what I just repeated. So that's an interesting.
Well,
that doesn't, the Brotherhood Week apparently, and the ecumenical spirit didn't
There's-
penetrate very
There's a
far.
lot of areas in Europe now with all the immigrants migrating from Middle Eastern countries into England, and the chief of police of Oslo, Norway, was a female. She made the statement that the one area of her city they've just written off. It's Sharia law.
Yeah.
The police don't even they
won't go there.
yeah
In
they
England, too,
had
places.
in England, and it's starting. There's areas outside of Detroit and areas around Minneapolis that is Sharia law is the basic law.
Do you remember several years ago, whoever was the president or premier, I guess his president of Austria, was being castigated as if he was a new Nazi because he was talking about these immigrants coming in mass numbers into the uncontrollable into his country, and sounds like he was
Well,
right on the money.
You have Italy now has a what they're now describing them as nationalists. Italy, in Hungary, in Poland, they're gaining
trend,
strength in
yeah.
Holland. They're gaining strength in France. They're
Who is?
gaining strength. Those that are that object to
Oh, yeah.
having their culture and their civilization
How
transformed
dare they, huh?
by immigrants,
Is-
and it's becoming a real problem. I mean, in Germany, the last elections, the mainstream parties that have been promoting all this took a terrific beating at the elections they had in Bavaria and Germany.
I hope it's not too late for Europe.
So it's that's why you're getting all this notion. The president of France insulted, gave these
nationalist.
thinly veiled attacks on nationalism,
Right.
with Donald Trump sitting there in the audience. But they're because they see this happening. It's all well and good for them to say that it's Donald Trump that's promoting all this, but it's happening in Europe.
Yeah.
Country after country, the voters are deciding that they've had enough, and they're voting for politicians that in many ways are very similar to what President Trump is presenting here in the United
Right.
States. And
Now,
Who was it?
they don't like
Brazil is being called
Brazil,
the
perfect
Latin
example. Huge-
the Latin Trump or
a
something.
huge country, Bolsonaro, who is in many ways, in the same tradition of Donald Trump. He's very he's a patriot. So if you're a patriot, they call you a nationalist.
Yeah.
Right.
And they say that nationalism is a bad word. All a nationalism means is you extol your nation. You're devoted to your nation. You want your nation to prosper and be
It
successful.
was one big conference. Trump said, "Well, I'm all for my country, and you should be for yours, number one too,
Right.
whoever you are." What's wrong
That's
with
right.
that?
Yeah, he says every country should want their country to be
That's
great.
not to your exclusion,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Now these
I'll look out
countries
for my
you were
interest and-
describing, did they have open borders or pretty much?
Well,
Huh?
in Europe, sure,
They did.
that's the
So
problem. is
they can come in for
Germany took in like a million, somewhere in the vicinity of a million immigrants in 1 year, a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and because of it, Angela Merkel's very unpopular. Her party has been taking a hammering at the election.
Is that anything to do with this European Union by any chance?
of course
Sure it is.
Is it? I don't know. I mean, of course.
Of course, the European Union. The whole idea is that nations don't matter as much anymore. That the big decisions are going to be made by a bureaucracy in Strasbourg or Brussels, and the voters really have almost nothing. Yeah, sure, you can elect your parliaments and you
Yeah.
can vote, but we're going to make the big decisions.
I think it's going
Right.
to fall apart.
Yeah,
myself,
along
this
that
union.
line,
They're terrified.
the European Union come up with this world court,
Somebody else?
and they're
Same
telling them they
Britain
have
dropped
precedence
out of the
over our
Union.
Supreme Court, and they said,
back to
no,
the
you don't.
People, I believe in countries. That's what Donald Trump is essentially saying. He wants nations to be successful, and that's becoming more and more Europeans are thinking that same way. But if you're part of like we use the term, the establishment, well, they've got their establishment too, and only it's even more powerful than ours. And if you're in France, they have schools. They have the École Supérieure. And you go to these schools and you graduate and you're sort of mainstreamed into the government, and you get government positions, you get good positions in the administration, and then you run for the
like Ivy League or what?
assembly. Yeah, it's much more rigid and much more structured there. And these are the people that rise in politics, and they all think alike. No matter what political party they belong
Right.
to, they all think alike.
The puppets.
And they've had their way, and now finally the voters are saying we've had enough of this. We want to take control, and they're voting for parties that didn't graduate from these schools and aren't part of this elite establishment.
Right.
And the leaders there that have had it their own way for decades now, they don't like this. And they're calling these people the far right and fascists.
Yeah,
and
right.
Neo-fascist.
Gee,
demonize them.
this sounds awfully
You make it-
familiar.
you make it sound like these people are horrible. You don't want to vote for them. They're horrible. They'll take our fancy jobs away from
Right.
us.
Pardon me, gentlemen. It's time for yet another brief intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we'll be right back.
I know there's a word for it. Common cause? Are you
Yeah.
Do you suffer from pain? Do you know someone that has constant pain of their low back, neck, shoulder, knee, or wrist? Have they tried medications, exercise, physical therapy, or chiropractic, and nothing seemed to make it better? Well, I may have your answer. Why not try a napropath? Hi everybody, this is Dr. Wayne Chickowitz, and I've been practicing 30 years treating pain. I'm board certified and hold a diplomate in pain management. For your convenience, we have 2 locations. In Cicero, 3602 South 61st Avenue, 708-656-7000, or in Villa Park at 122 West St. Charles Road, Suite 1A, 630-833-4007. Why not try a napropath and stop the pain today?
Now, back to our show. Jack?
We're back to the show, folks. And we were just talking about Europe, nationalism, illegal immigration.
The thing is, the country's like John was saying, the country's values. I mean, what's wrong with wanting people that come, into your home, so to speak, that adhere to the same values? I used to say, and I don't say it anymore. Back in the 60s, let's say, there wasn't really that much difference between politicians, Republicans or Democrats. I mean, there were liberal, but now it's gone so far out of kilt.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor of New York, Cuomo, the governor of New York, this is mind-boggling, made a statement. America was never great.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine? I wish I had been there. I would have jumped up and said, excuse me, Governor, does the Declaration of Independence ring a bell? Does the Revolutionary War
Constitution.
come to mind? What we did in World War I, World War II, the economic recovery after the Great Depression, the Emancipation Proclamation, that none of that was made this country great.
And what is really sad is that if a politician, particularly somebody as high profile as the governor of New York, had said that 25 years ago, 50 years ago, he would have been ridden out of town. He would have had to resign.
Right. He would
have
There
been
would have been
toast,
such
as they
an
say.
outrage over that he would have probably had to, at least, he would have had to beg forgiveness at a minimum and probably would have had to resign. And today, it's just
Yeah,
And well, if he
yeah,
said
right.
so,
means
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And he gives some phony baloney. Well, I didn't really mean what I said, and that's
Yeah.
that's good enough.
Was there any kind of context that Cuomo was speaking of that? Or was his statement just pulled out of
I think they
something?
were attacking Trump because of
Yeah.
Trump's
Right.
Make America
slogan,
great again.
"Make America Great Again,"
Right.
and they hate Trump
Never
so
go.
intensely that they hate
They
everything
hate
he
that
says.
slogan, then.
They
They
hate
would-
anything connected
okay.
with
they're
him.
totally irrational about it, too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, as you said this before, all the time Donald Trump has been in the public eye, 40 years, maybe more.
Yeah,
Was he ever declared to be a racist or
No.
accused of that? He was like popular with everybody. I'm
Yeah.
sure he gave to all causes. Wealthy. By the way, he made his wealth before he came into the government. not like a few other people we know
Okay,
of.
okay.
I'd like to think of Lyndon Johnson,
Lyndon Baines Johnson.
a teacher, a high school teacher from Texas,
Yeah.
winds up with the LBJ Ranch.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
come
never-
on.
yeah,
I guess
You
guess
mentioned
I think he married into the
before,
credit
Harry-
of that
Harry-
money.
Harry
Lady
Reid.
Bird was good with the house money, right?
Lady Bird?
When he was putting
You mentioned you mentioned the name before, Harry
I
Harry
thought he
Reid.
married into some money.
Didn't they own
Okay.
Pepsi Cola?
Harry
She was
Reid
maybe
from
a little
Searchlight,
better off than
Nevada.
he was, but
Dirt-
he was
Not saying
Harry
kind of a
Reid
Rockefeller.
from Searchlight, Nevada.
Yeah.
Dirt poor, leaves office as a millionaire. How does that happen?
It's the American way.
Well, even someone like Durbin, who I don't say Durbin was out grafting, but guess what? Mrs. Durbin is a lobbyist, so she can go to some big outfit. I don't mean be a lobbyist for Paws Chicago, but for some big corporation. My husband, the senator, right? Oh well, now.
We got to do something.
That's not good. That's not good.
Well, that's like the position that Michelle Obama held at the University of Chicago hospitals. It wasn't in existence before Barack became a senator, and after she left, no one assumed the position. It was like $300,000 a year.
My wife applied for it.
Well, here's another thing. Talking about our former president, who was anointed the smartest president ever in the history. Forget about those nitwits like Thomas Jefferson.
Lincoln.
Was that what was
Yeah.
printed on his business card? I wondered.
Yeah, the smartest man. Since he left office, the only accomplishments that he's done is give speeches for money, a great deal of money, and badmouth, which is unprecedented for a former president to badmouth the present president.
What you
But I mean,
said,
but I mean, the smartest man ever in history. You think that if some Fortune 500 company would snatch him up as a CEO or whatever. The reason for that is because they know he's a moron.
But what did he say about you didn't build that?
Oh yeah,
You didn't build that.
You
Makes me
didn't
think
build
of
it.
Bennett Cerf. Remember Bennett Cerf from What's My Line? He started out with nothing. He took this Random House was his publisher. For years, he took nothing out of it, just to subsistence. He built it up, not anybody else, not the government. But anyway, what you also said before, Tom, about the difference or non-difference between Democrats and Republicans formerly. What was the one book called? A Choice Down an Echo for conservatives. But anyway, makes me think of. Does anyone remember? It was a Broadway review from the establishment in Britain called Beyond the Fringe in the '60s. Anyone ever heard of it? Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, a few other people. Well, one sketch in there, mostly verbal, obviously, was two Brits talking about what is America? How do you find America? And one says, what is it? What is it like? Is it the West? Oh, that's West. What's North? No, that's North. No, that's Canada. And finally, they said, what have they got? They've gotten from us. And the one guy says, well, they've inherited our two-party system. He says, really? He says, yes. We have the Republican Party, which is the equivalent of our Conservative Party. Yes. The Democratic Party, which is the equivalent of our Conservative Party. Just like that. That's just the line that's used. And it was largely true then.
Yeah, and you didn't have the hatred within politics. I mean, you go back to even the 30s. There were people who hated FDR. There were people who loved FDR. We've had presidents before Donald Trump that elicited a great deal of
Abraham
feelings
Lincoln.
both ways. Lincoln, Nixon, many presidents.
Andrew Jackson.
Sure. But the difference was that there wasn't this sense of hatred at the political level. You may disagree, but you didn't have the notion that the other side was somebody you wanted to destroy. You wanted to win the next election, but you didn't want to destroy them and crush them and obliterate them. We're reaching a point now where there is no common ground.
It's irrational.
Between the two parties.
Totally irrational.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the Democratic Party. I mean, I'm a registered Democrat. Grew up in a Democratic household, but now, I mean, they're talking about defeating Donald Trump, and the Democratic Party presents the American people with a group of complete and total whack jobs. I mean, really, the new darling of the Democratic Party, the one that was elected in New York.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, she was a bartender. She made a comment the other day about the three branches of. We're going to take over all three branches of government: president, House, and Senate.
Yeah.
The three branches.
say that?
Oh yeah, yeah. She's a nut.
Can you imagine if Dan Quayle had said that?
Oh,
yeah,
Dan
oh.
Quayle, yeah.
I mean, the late night comics would be doing jokes about that for the next 3 months.
And the odd thing is that you can spell potato with an E on the end.
Of course you
No,
can.
you can't,
Sure.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he made a fortune out of that selling potato chips.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the other, again, you bending over backwards for groups. The supposedly the transgender, transvestite, trans whatever. There are so few of them that it doesn't even constitute a blip on any percentages of the American people. But you would think it's like back, and again, John and I have talked about this. We couldn't care less if someone's gay. As a matter of fact, God bless them. But to promote it as being better than another group, or to make exceptions for a small percentage. You ask the average person, what percentage of the population do you think is gay? They'll say, 20, 25, and I think it's like 3 point. Yeah, I mean but to force a baker to bake a cake for a gay wedding that goes against his beliefs, to force someone to do that, I mean, it's just it's ridiculous.
That's not the same as if they were refusing accommodation in a public place.
Yeah,
That's it's not. I just said that's against ours. Go somewhere else. So what? So according to that, there's no reason you could actually turn anyone down. Then is there at all?
And again the trump card. Excuse the pun. Calling someone a racist for total and complete nonsense.
Yeah,
Tom?
but that's their last resort. If
Yeah, there
they
you
can't
go.
do
It's becoming
anything,
their
they-
first resort. It's
they-
no longer. It's not. It's the first resort.
Yeah, but
Anyone who disagrees is a racist.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's essentially the definition. Anybody who disagrees is a racist.
What about the idea of we're going to impeach him? Well, you have to have a reason to impeach someone. Impeach.
Like I said, I believe that the average person has no idea what impeachment actually is.
No.
I think they think that it's something akin to a recall election or something, which is, as we all know, it's
Right.
no comparison.
But I think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think there's enough. You have to have, 2/3 in each house to
No.
impeach?
To
And to,
impeach, you just need a majority. You need
Majority.
a
House.
majority of the House to impeach. But
trial
that's
goes
the
to the
Now,
Senate.
convict was
impeach is
something
another
else,
word
yeah.
for indict. It's like
Yeah.
it's the
Right,
equivalent
yeah.
of an indictment.
but
And
with the
Then the
political
trial in the Senate.
the
There
political
you need 2/3.
considerations in the House, would there be?
with a majority, and now I mean I think it's the Republicans picked up net 2 seats, so they're going to have 53 seats in the new Senate.
That's for conviction.
So if it's
It's
50,
2/3. Right?
So if you think you're going to get 67 senators to vote to remove Donald Trump when 53 of them are Republicans, good luck.
Well, how
good
about
luck to you.
on
I
the
would-
House?
I wish
Again-
you
again,
good luck.
Is
Yeah.
the Republicans still hold more than half of the
That's what I'm
House?
saying.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
And both of the
The House-
It shows people that call for impeachment. Shows that they have little or no knowledge of what impeachment actually
Yeah.
is.
There will
Right.
be 47 Democrat seats in the new Senate, which includes Bernie Sanders and Angus King, who call themselves independents, but they run as independents, but they vote with the Democrats. So they'll have 47 seats, and all they need to do is pick up 20 more Republicans to vote. That's all they have to do. I mean, it's very simple to persuade, 20 Republicans to
Right.
vote to throw out a president of their party. So I mean,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
Basically the
and
same in the
it's
House.
child's
too.
play. It's easy,
Yeah.
easy.
And high crimes and misdemeanors. You can't impeach someone because you don't like the way that
don't like
statement that they made, or you're right, or you
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
you don't like them.
That's-
Again, I think that people that they don't understand what impeachment is or what
Well, and on
what
the-
the process is. Like you said, good luck with that.
The other side of the bridge is, I personally don't think the Republicans shouldn't have impeached Clinton.
Yeah,
Because he was doing his job the best he could, but
No.
it was something completely different, and it cost him a lot in the next election.
There were people sitting in federal prison who did less, lying to the FBI. Remember, Remember
Martha
public enemy
Stewart.
number one, Martha Stewart?
Right.
She went to the joint.
Yeah, I
room.
said lying to the FBI is a crime. Lying to the Chicago police is a sport.
Art form.
Yeah.
Well, one
Outdoors-
thing,
outdoors.
I don't know about the other ones, but if you're talking to the cops, I'd say 95% of them ask you questions. They know what the answer is, and if it doesn't match it, you're lying to them.
Well, that's the standard line for an attorney. You never ask a question in court unless you know the answer to the question.
Right.
I had a few stick their foot in their mouth that way.
You can call those leading questions. They just
Yeah.
they keep going with it.
And one time, I had 3 ladies jump on me because I put a parking ticket on the one car in the tollway zone, and one of them, she knew somebody was a roommate with somebody who worked for CBS TV. They were all, and these ladies get me a CR number, and the guy from Civil Rights Division of the FBI is calling me at home now, and I said I stand on my statement I've already made. That I already made. Well, okay, that's fine. That's what you want to hear. So getting to court, they had this big-time ACLU attorney, Kermit Coleman. Remember him? He's dead now.
Yes.
So he says about when in the interrogation room, in the interview room, Officer Ryan, were you sitting directly across the table from Miss So-and-so? I said, no. Oh, then you were sitting on the same side of the table. I said, no. He just used 2 or 3 times. Finally, the judge says, the officers answered the question. Well, the answer was, I was sitting kitty corner from her, not directly across, but he couldn't, it just goofed him all up.
Yeah, along those lines, I remember he owned the restaurant. It wasn't the Golden Axe that was down by Clybourne. It was the Golden Axe on Archer Avenue.
Yeah.
Like Archer and I had been in the restaurant many times, and I
Was it on Chelsea?
No, it was further west. And anyway, I locked him up for DUI. There's a book written about how to defend DUI cases. It's like a Bible for attorneys that defend people arrested for DUI. And one of the questions is, now you said that my client was staggering. You've never seen my client walk before, have you? Yes. Threw him for a loop. He should have just passed it up.
Yeah.
He said, "You've seen my client, he's very indignant about it." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I went into his restaurant several times." Well, how far have you seen him walk? Well, I saw him walk all the way from the front of the restaurant all the way to the back of the restaurant, and from the back of the restaurant all the way to the front of the restaurant. The judge was kind of laughing, but he wouldn't give up on it.
Yeah.
And he said, "So was he walking the same?" I said, "No, he was walking differently on the days that I was in his restaurant because he was sober. When I saw him arrested him, he was drunk. But he couldn't get. It was just so shocking that normally quite you've never seen my client walk
Yeah.
before. 99.999.
No, I've never seen- yeah.
I've never seen him walk before.
He walked in.
Yeah.
That's like, we used to get down, when I'm in the corners, you oftentimes get some jerk who walks right up to you smoking a joint. Now that's in the front. So this one particular was a Sunday evening in like March in 1978, shortly before I got dumped at that time. Third watch, around Division and Clark, you'd go up and you're supposed to write all these bus stops, everybody was around these. So I walk up, I think it's at Clark and Division, there's a subway station. There's about 10 people
Sounds right.
standing there.
Yeah.
There's the fragrant in the air. I see 2 people smoking. A young black man had an obvious filter cigarette. So I go to this young blonde broad. I said, "What are you smoking?" This is her. "Pardon me? What are you asking me that for? You have no right to ask me that." So really, I took it. And she goes, "This is her. You can't do that. I'm a law student." And I said, "Thank you, Lord." And she had like 13 grams in her bag, which is no big deal. This is shortly, up until that time, any amount was a felony. But now it was like, it's so much as this to be a misdemeanor. Finally, it will be so much amount would be a felony, or selling it, a felony would be a felony. So she gets, what was his name now? You know him. Dean Wolfson was her defense attorney. So he's making small talk to me, and how long you been down the loop traffic, and how long you been there, and so. And I've been there with 4 or 5 years by then. So he knew some people down there. So he gets it before the judge and says to me, in the past 14 months, how many similar arrests have you made? And I said, well, this is my 22nd. It was true. But I don't go around searching people.
Let's talk
But
about
they-
something else.
But if
now.
they walk up to you, well, the judge gave her a play at it. But when she said, she was a snot right to the end, you know. She's from somewhere downstate. Her folks were probably on a farm somewhere, sending her to law school here, and she's
Yeah.
there.
You get an
Oh, by the way, she said, I can't go there. I got to go to the ballet tonight. And I said, I don't think so. You know. Anyway, well, that's a good excuse, isn't it? I can go to the ballet. Next story.
Well, one of my favorite attorney jokes, and I have a lot of friends that are attorneys, and a couple of friends that are judges,
You've been, I'm
And,
a friend, so.
and they are replacing laboratory rats for experiments with attorneys. Have you heard this
Why
one?
is that, Tom?
Well, for 3 reasons. One, there are more attorneys than there are laboratory rats. 2, the lab technicians don't get as attached to the attorneys as they did to the rats. And 3, there were just some things that the rats wouldn't do.
That's good. I gotta remember that.
Is that a good one?
That's a good one.
What's that? What do you call 2,000 attorneys at the bottom of the ocean? A good start. Of course, when you need an attorney, it's like we need a cop or a fireman or whatever. You know, that's different.
Yeah.
You know,
Trouble is
I've
that-
got an attorney, and she's got her office in southern France. Figured that one out.
Bob Dole once said that he had good news and bad news. There was a bus that careened off of a cliff, and everybody aboard was killed. The good news is that everybody on board was a lawyer. The bad news was there were 4 empty seats.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
For what?
geez.
There were 4 empty seats.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those. Matter of fact, the lawyers tell all those lawyer jokes, don't they, Tom?
Oh yeah. They love it.
What's that one quote from Shakespeare? Which first thing she'll do is kill.
First
all
thing
the
we'll do is kill all the lawyers.
lawyers, you know. What's that from?
Yeah,
Shakespeare. What else?
I'm not sure.
Play?
I'm not going to guess because I'm not sure.
Yeah, the 2 lawyers walking down the street and they see this beautiful girl walking by, and one attorney says, "Man, I'd like to screw her," and the other attorney says, "Out of what?"
Whoa. Oh, geez.
Wrong there. I heard that from your brother Dennis.
fell off of a cruise ship in the Caribbean, and as he was bobbing up and down, he was surrounded by sharks, but they didn't come in and attack him. And finally, when they rescued him, they asked him why the sharks didn't kill him, and he says, "Oh, professional courtesy."
Yeah, they take a beating, but like you say, when you need them, you know.
Yeah,
Wasn't-
yeah. It's. I mean, they're in a sense, it's good-natured humor. It's. I mean, I think it's understandable.
There are some really total jerks that get in, like everything else. You know, I've had a couple interfere with you on the street. I'm a lawyer. What are you doing here? None of your business. You're in my ballpark now. You know.
Old Monsignor died after many, many years of service to the church, and he went to heaven. And he walks through the gates of heaven. Nothing, nobody, he doesn't know what to do. He sees the gates, he walks in, and he's walking down the golden road, and he sees angels and saints, and absolutely nothing. All of a sudden he hears a sound in the distance, and it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. It's a parade. It's a huge parade down this wide golden thoroughfare that he's been walking. And there are legions of angels marching, and legions of angels, and choirs, and singing, and golden confetti coming down from the skies. And finally there's this huge golden limousine, and this one fellow waving, to the crowd, and there's 2 angels carrying a sign in front of the limousine that says, "Heaven welcomes John Q. Jones, attorney at law." Well, he's incensed. The Monsignor's incensed, and he asks how does he find St. Peter? He says, well, he's in the headquarters building downtown. You can't miss it. So he goes to the headquarters building, and St. Peter's office is on the 1,000th floor. So he takes the elevator and goes into the office, and the angel welcomes and says, "Oh, Monsignor Flaherty, it's so good to see you. We'll send you in to see St. Peter right away." St. Peter ushers him into his golden office. with his silver desk, and he says, "Oh, Monsignor, we're so glad to have you here." And the Monsignor says, "Don't give me that. I have no patience for that." He said, "Well, what's the matter, Monsignor?" He says, "I've been a poor priest all my life, served in the poorest of parishes. I finally, after all these years, became a Monsignor, and I died the next day. And I find myself here in heaven. No one greeted me. No one patted me on the back. No one shook my hand and thanked me. And then I saw that ridiculous parade that you gave for that John Q. Jones lawyer." He says, "Monsignor, you must understand. We get priests and bishops and clergy every day joining us. Do you know how many thousands of years it's been since we got a lawyer up here?"
You're talking about angels. You know they were all created at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no such thing as a baby angel.
Cherub.
Cherub.
That makes me think of the story about one day St. Peter's too busy to greet people at the gate, so he puts Albert Einstein over there in his place. So when people would come in, Albert Einstein would admit them, but he'd say, "By the way, do you mind my asking what's your IQ?" Oh, the one guy says, "Oh yes, it's 178." He says, "Oh, we could probably discuss quantum physics later on." He said, "Oh, good. Okay." Next guy comes in and talks to so and so. He said, "What is your IQ?" He says, 227. He says, "Oh, we can talk about my theory of relativity later." Then a few more come by, and he says, "And sir, might I ask you, what is your IQ?" The guy says, 46. And Einstein says, "How about them Packers?" Oh, well. That's just a joke, all you Packer fans listening out there. We kind of like the Packers, too. I thought
You would have thought the cheesehead would have been.
I used to thought I hated Lombardi till I found the guy died, and I was like, I was going to work that day, and I was like, the only thing I hated was he was on our side, you know. What did he say? Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing?
The only thing.
But he didn't mean, what he meant, when he explained on that, too, he said, you always have, in society, you'll have people who need your assistance or help. They will need your help. But let's reward those who are the achievers, those who go out and actually walk the walk, do everything else.
Well, they asked Curly Lambeau once why he never shook hands with Hallis after a game, which he never did.
Yeah.
He said, because when I win, Hallis wants to punch me in the face, and when he wins, I want to punch him in the face. So shaking hands is out of the question. They hated one another. But Lombardi and Hallis were
yeah, they were pretty tight.
Yeah. We're good. We're good friends.
They were thinking of the business side of things too. They even the Bears would play the Packers a lot of times twice in a season. They would also even play a preseason game maybe with them.
People say, "Have you ever been to Lambeau Field?" And I said, "Which I have."
Yeah,
I said,
I know.
Named after Curly Lambeau and his two brothers, Mo and Champ Lambeau. I said the best part about going to Lambeau Field is right after you go to the field. You can go over to, where the hell else can you go up there? There ain't a damn thing in that town other than that Lambeau. Somebody told me they opened up a new Kmart, but I'm not sure it's a super. I'm not sure it's a super.
Emily Miller's bratwurst place is there.
Yeah, right.
But by the way,
you talk about a one pony town.
Curly Lambeau was also a domer. You know that. A domer means Notre Dame.
I didn't know that.
People often wonder, like, how does a town like Green Bay have a major league sports team as it was? It's kind of a throwback to the years when you had NFL teams like from Rock Island,
the Decatur Staleys,
the Staleys from Decatur,
the Canton
Bears.
Bulldogs,
the Portsmouth, Ohio Spartans became the Detroit Lions, things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but there were so many teams that let's see, that came in one.
Yeah.
I used to go down to Tri-State, and I always used to see this decoy car parked somewhere by a viaduct.
Yeah.
And everybody knew it was a decoy car, and they really knew it was somebody glued a box of donuts on the
right
hood.
on the side of the decoy car.
But they glued a Dunkin' Donuts box right on the hood.
What do you mean decoy car though?
Nobody in there.
Yeah, a lot of municipalities put out squads.
Oh,
Yeah,
Just to slow people down.
yeah. Yeah, it was not a bad idea.
Unless they leave it there for 2 months and everybody figures it out.
Yeah,
but it serves its purpose because obviously we're talking about it.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, but just the sight of
Yeah, right. Yeah.
an empty car would have prevented a certain.
Even if you know it's a decoy car, it serves its
Well,
purpose.
sometimes they put dummies in there, and sometimes they put real cops.
Every
too.
day they put dummies in there.
Yeah.
Was that? Remember years ago, and we used to watch Garfield Goose. You can watch when we were older. Yeah. Anyway, the kids used to send in jokes, and Frazier would read the jokes. And one joke was, "What's black and white with a cherry on top and two nuts inside?" And the answer was a police car. So
Oh, God.
Did you read it?
he read it and he went, "Oh, come on now."
Uh-oh. That's
Yeah.
cute.
Garfield Goose. Who was his? Let's see. His nephew was Chris.
Christmas Goose.
Christmas Goose was
And Macintosh Mouse.
Right.
And Beauregard Burnside
The
III
third,
was the chief of the Secret Service.
Okay. Do you remember Geronimo? He had an actual live monkey he used to have as his butler.
that I
Yeah,
don't
remember
remember.
Geronimo?
Yeah.
See, we're too old. We're older than you are.
That I don't remember.
You don't remember. You weren't watching it. You had better things to do.
And the puppeteer
Who
on
knew?
Garfield Goose was Ray Brown, a.k.a.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our
Cookie the
final
Corn.
intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
And we're getting to the home stretch.
Yeah, maybe we should even.
Well, friends, Old Man Winter is not that far away. In fact, if you were to go outside today, Monday, November the 19th, 2018, it feels like winter has already been here. But anyways, now is the time to check your siding, roof, and gutters before the snow or ice or rainstorms appear. You may want to check to make sure that they are in good shape. Your roof, sidings, and gutters. You don't want mold or mildew or drip in your crawl space or on the ceilings in your rooms. Or have walls damaged by a leaky gutter or a bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get it taken care of. So call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Mike Besh will drive over in a shiny red truck with ladders on top, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters, give you an estimate, and go from there. So once again, friends, don't have double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. Remember, Old Man Winter is just not that far away, and you don't want snow, ice, or heavy rains on your roof or gutters or siding to do any damage. Mike Besh and Best Brothers Roofing, 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate.
Now, back to our show. Jack?
Well, we want to get back to wrap this all up since we're not exactly in the home stretch, but we're on the final turn here, folks.
Oh, boy.
We're glad you're still with us, if you are, and if you're not, we're still glad you're out there. And we're going to get back to our subject about Thanksgiving in Chicago then and now.
Okay,
And anything about particular. Anybody remember about growing up or what traditions?
I've got Question: turkey or ham?
Turkey.
Turkey.
I saw a ad the other day where they put a ham inside of a turkey.
Okay.
Yuck.
It's a very diplomatic
Then
response.
they, what was it?
Turkey
can't see.
always.
Turkey.
They took a turkey and put a
Turkey.
chicken and then put a duck.
Yeah, they call it.
Turducken.
Turducken, yeah.
The president never gives a reprieve to any hogs, does he? But he does the turkey.
No.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
They're still doing that? Yeah.
That tradition began with Abraham Lincoln.
It did.
Abraham Lincoln pardoned the turkey because his son was crying when
Oh.
they told him that the turkey was going to be
That's
killed.
interesting.
And so the president he formally pardoned him, and that was the beginning of it. It didn't continue every year, but it was revived in the 20th century
But
when
I
presidents began pardoning.
personally think all meat should come the way it does in the plastic packages in the store. It's not just got a real animal, right? Don't you think
I
so?
worked with a guy once, and he thought chickens had 4 legs because that's how many legs came in the package.
Really?
Makes sense.
Really?
Well, that's a salesman, traveling salesman. Naturally, car breaks down. He goes up to a farmhouse, and he's talking to the farmer on the front porch. And as he's talking, a chicken runs by like about 50 miles an hour. Choom. So he's talking again. Here comes another chicken, runs by, like it's going about 60. So he says to the farmer, he says, "Holy cow." He said, "I've never seen chicken run that fast." He says, "Well," he says, my wife liked chicken leg. I like chicken leg. My son liked chicken leg. So we bred a chicken, got 4 legs. He says, "Wow." He says, "What does it taste like?" He says, "I don't know. We ain't caught one yet."
Let me tell you a little bit about the origins of our national Thanksgiving, our
Here,
great
here.
American holiday.
Mhm.
The first Congress, which assembled in 1789 when our government was formally put into operation after the Constitution was adopted, both houses of Congress formally called upon President Washington to issue a proclamation for a national day of Thanksgiving. And he proclaimed November the 26th to be that first formal, under the Constitution, National Day of Thanksgiving. And in his proclamation, he expressed his gratitude to the providence of Almighty God.
That's right.
And there were those, who questioned whether the president could issue what was considered a religious proclamation. But Washington felt he was perfectly empowered. He did not believe that the First Amendment, this notion of the separate, he believed that as president, the nation could acknowledge God. He did not mention Jesus Christ in the proclamation. He felt that it had to be a religious proclamation that all faiths could subscribe to. So he didn't make it specifically Christian, even though the overwhelming majority of Americans were, as they are today, Christian. And so it's been continued. It was continued intermittently after that. Jefferson never issued a proclamation because Jefferson did not believe that it was proper for a president to be expressing religious opinions of any kind.
He was a deist, and
he objected to this notion.
yeah.
But it was Abraham Lincoln in 1863, the year that, and it's interesting, today is the day, today, November the 19th, is the anniversary of Lincoln's delivery of the Gettysburg Address. He delivered that address on November the 19th, 1863, at the dedication of the cemetery in Gettysburg. And just a few days later, he issued a proclamation for a National Thanksgiving Day, which began the custom of every president every year issuing a presidential proclamation for Thanksgiving Day. So every year since 1863, without exception, we have had a national declaration of a Thanksgiving Day. Washington talked about the providence of Almighty God. Lincoln talked about the Most High God who dwelleth in the heavens. Ulysses S. Grant talked about the supreme author from whom all of our blessings flow. Grover Cleveland made reference to God as the ruler of the universe. In the 20th century, Herbert Hoover interestingly referred to God as the chief magistrate, in capitals, the chief magistrate. FDR, in his proclamation, once referred to God as the Father of us all. And George H.W. Bush, in more recent times, referred to him as the loving source of all of our liberties and blessings. So the idea of the president, issuing this proclamation goes back to Washington for its origins, and every president since Lincoln has done it.
Excuse me, John. Why do you think Thursday was picked as the day?
I'm not sure if there's.
I'd like to get a.
I'm not sure, but of course, for many years, it was beginning with Abraham Lincoln. His proclamation was for the last Thursday in November, and it continued that way until Franklin Roosevelt decided that in the 1930s he kind of got trapped into this. A group of businessmen and merchants came to him and said, Mr. President, the Christmas season begins with Thanksgiving. Not like today where it begins with the 4th of July. But in those days, you can remember when the Macy's Thanksgiving, that was the official kickoff.
No decoration beforehand. Right?
Santa Claus is at the end of the parade, and that was the beginning of the Christmas season. Well, they came to him and said, with the Depression, we could use an extra shot in the arm, so maybe we could have Thanksgiving 1 week earlier, and that would give us an extra week of business. So FDR did what they asked him to do, and he ran into a hornet's nest of opposition. That year, 1939, he proclaimed that Thanksgiving would not be the last Thursday, would be the previous Thursday. And it became a political mess. Democrats liked it. Republicans who didn't like Roosevelt took it as an opportunity to attack the president, attacking our hallowed tradition that Thanksgiving is the last Thursday. So governors also issue state proclamations. So Republican governors were issuing proclamations for the last Thursday of the month. Democratic governors were issuing proclamations for the one FDR had declared. In New York, the governor was Republican, so he followed the traditional date. The mayor of New York City was a Democrat, so he issued a mayoral proclamation with FDR's date, and people, it caused a total mess.
That's right.
Families, they lived in an area where the kids were going to get off from school on the next to last Thursday, but Daddy had to go to work across the border in a state, so it became nothing but chaos. And you can see a representation of this in the movie Holiday Inn. If you remember Holiday Inn, they do this little cartoon about when it comes to Thanksgiving Day, and Bing Crosby's going to have his turkey at Holiday Inn. They do this cartoon with the month of November, and the turkey is sitting there on the last Thursday, and then he gets up and goes to the other Thursday, and then finally this cartoon turkey looks into the camera as if to say, I don't know what's going on. This is a parody of the controversy that was going on. Finally, in April of 1941, and it wasn't FDR's idea. In defense of Roosevelt, he did this to make the businessmen happy, and he wound up. So finally, he said, they came to him and said they had done a study and found that it had no impact on business whatsoever. There was no increase in business whatsoever. So he announced that in 1941 we will revert back. No, I think it's 41. He said we can't do it this year because the calendars have already been printed. But next year, 1942, we will revert to the traditional date. Well, Congress got into the act. They couldn't leave it go at that. So Congress passed legislation which said that Thanksgiving Day will be the 4th Thursday in November. And it's like 5 out of 7 years, the 4th Thursday is the last Thursday. But 2 out of every 7 years, there's a 5th Thursday.
Right.
Which is why it is now always the 4th Thursday of the month, even if there is a Thursday following it, which we have the case this year, where there's another Thursday after Thanksgiving. But that's the origin of that little cartoon that you see in Holiday. Next time you watch Holiday Inn, pay attention.
And it was the last time the Congress ever did anything that made sense.
That made sense. So 39, 40, and 41, and the Republicans referred to it as Franksgiving. Franksgiving from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yeah, his day. They called his day Franksgiving.
Well, I thought maybe they had hot dogs.
Well, they had to be on a Thursday. If it was on Friday, we couldn't have turkey. Catholic Church,
Probably have
tuna salad.
Oh, and an interesting thing is the last church, the last really holdout in terms of celebration was the Catholic Church. In the 19th century, Thanksgiving was looked upon by many Catholics as a Protestant holiday because the Pilgrims, of course, the Puritans, it was celebrated by the Methodists and the Presbyterians and the Episcopalians. But and even Southern Baptists, there was a sectional thing to it. Southerners looked upon it as a Yankee holiday, and a lot of Southern states,
Really?
a lot of
Thanksgiving?
in the Southern states, did not observe it, or they observed it on a different date because they weren't going to have a Yankee, and sometimes referred to as that damn Yankee holiday. But
right.
finally, after the Civil War, that notion subsided, and it disappeared.
Wasn't also with the Puritans, didn't sects like that, they like had nothing to do with Christmas. Christmas was supposed to be
That was the other thing. For the Puritans, Thanksgiving essentially took the place of Christmas. Thanksgiving was the centerpiece in New England. That was the day that people had their great banquet and celebrated, because Christmas to them was a Roman or a church
Pagan.
the
Commercial
Church of
holiday.
Rome and the Church of England celebrated Christmas. You know, the Anglicans and the Catholics celebrated Christmas, but the good Puritans of New England, Thanksgiving became their sort of substitute for Christmas. The Catholic Church, it wasn't until the 1870s and 1880s that Catholics finally decided, this is really part of America, and for us to be standoffish about it, it's calling people to question whether Catholic. It was engendering this notion that Catholics were not real Americans, because the Church would not hold. The Catholic Church would not hold special observances on Thanksgiving Day, which all the other denominations would do. And finally, they had I think the bishops' conference decided, we shall celebrate Thanksgiving. This is an American holiday. It is not a purely Protestant holiday. And from there on in, then Catholic churches would have special masses and special
But only in
celebrations
this
of
country
Thanksgiving.
or all over the world?
Well, this is an American holiday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thanksgiving is, other than Canada, this is an American holiday.
What,
It's the great American
what
holiday.
you just said made me think of the routine. Bob Newhart is supposed to be someone in England talking to Sir Walter Raleigh
Oh,
on the
cigarette,
phone.
the tobacco.
Oh, I missed that
He says,
Raleigh thing.
"Hey guys, look, this crazy Wally on the phone. What do we have to say now?" He says,
He sticks these weeds in his.
How are you, Wally? What's going on? All those turkeys you sent? Yeah, they got off the ships. They're running all over wild over London. He says, "Come on, Wally, it's an American holiday."
What was
Well, he gets on the tobacco,
that program they decided they were going to deliver turkeys and they dropped them out of a
That's
helicopter?
That's
WKRP.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh, yeah,
supposedly
yeah.
one of the funniest lines in the history of
What is it?
sitcoms, when the announcer.
As God.
Oh yeah. Well, actually,
I don't wanna take the land.
Yeah, he's announcing the turkey drop from a live location. He says, "And then here comes the turkeys. They're falling. They're dropping like bags of wet cement." And then the line, the head of the radio station, when he comes back in, he's all
Gordon Jump.
covered with crap. He says, "God is my witness. I thought turkeys could fly."
That was a great program. That was a lot of good stuff in that program. Yeah.
I guess a wildwood can a little flutter, but can't really take flight.
Where England really became aware of Thanksgiving as an American holiday was during World War II, because there were so many GIs in England, and they were going in the stores looking for turkey, and that's when the English they tried to accommodate them because they weren't aware of this American holiday. I'm sure there were some that, but it didn't really make an impression in England until World War II with all the soldiers over there.
What do they say about the Yanks? There's only three things wrong with them. They're overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fellas, I before we
Here we go.
get to the end of this Thanksgiving program, I would like to invite people to our open house at the Museum of Fire Museum of Greater Chicago. It's the 24th. That's this coming Saturday. And the Saturday after that, if any of you remember, and I would imagine
yeah.
most people do, would be December 1st. December 1st of 1958, Our Lady of the Angels School
Right.
caught on fire. We lost 92 kids and 3 nuns, 95 in all. And that Saturday, December 1st, at 10 o'clock, I will have a program at the Chicago Fire Academy on DeKoven Street, and it will be, the program is by a fellow by the name of Jim Gibbons, who I thought would be here today. I don't know what happened to Jim. I think his wife was ailing. But anyway, this is at 10 o'clock at the Fire Academy, the Quinn Fire Academy on DeKoven. The next day, which would be Sunday, December 2nd, at 5 o'clock, we will have the Mass. This is the 60th anniversary of this tragedy.
That's
This
hard to
tragedy
comprehend.
was not only in Chicago, it was in the state, it was in the country, and it was overseas. My company would have been there. Well, my company was there. I would have been there, but I was in the Army in France. And when my dad called me and told me about this, I started to ask over there, do you people know about? Oh, yes, we know. We know. It's on the radio. It's all over, and it changed the laws all over the world. Changed fire prevention laws, and we still, like I say, we don't celebrate. This is not a celebration.
It's a remembrance.
Of course, it's just a remembrance that we remember all of these kids and these nuns and what it did to change the fire prevention laws and rules that might have saved a lot more
Right.
if that hadn't changed come up. Jim Gibbons puts on one hell of a program. Free. Mission is free. We'll have some eats there, and it's up on the 3rd floor of the Fire Academy. And
It's around Roosevelt. and what?
what's that?
Clinton?
Taylor
Yeah.
and
I know
Jefferson.
DeKalb.
DeKalb is at Jackson and
It's on Jefferson and Taylor.
Jefferson and
Between
Taylor.
Jefferson and Clifton, and at Taylor.
Yeah, you can't miss it. Big red building.
Yeah, it's
Right.
Parking is free, and I hope that we have a crowd.
Yep.
Naturally, 60 years since then, a lot of these people are gone.
Yep.
A lot of the families are still around, though. I know for you guys in the Chicago Police, Beth Atkins, her maiden name is Troka. She is still around. She's retired from your job, but her mother is still living, and they tell stories of what happened there. Father, the priest that was there, Father Joe Agnabene, was a good friend of mine. I got to know him, and I'm very, very tied in with OLA.
Bill, what was the cause of that fire?
It was a garbage can, trash can of some kind under the stairs, and I guess these kids threw matches in it, and that. The people that I know, and they passed on, they know who the kid was. Kid's still around. They followed him. And this was years later. This was, maybe 15 years ago. They followed this kid out to California, and they told the police and the fire chief out there what this was, and the school people. And watch this guy. He was a
Right.
over-the-counter, or not over-the-counter, over-the-road truck driver. So they just didn't know.
Was it a wood staircase? Like old wooden
Oh yeah,
staircase?
it was just all.
Didn't- Didn't they catch him trying to do something at Cicero?
Yeah, they did. That was
And
part of it.
Be-
we
Between
have,
the city of Chicago and the Archdiocese, they didn't push it.
No, they didn't, and there was a very big controversy over this whole thing. You really couldn't prove it. The kid never, he never fessed up. We have the same thing now. We've got, you guys remember Quarters Boyle?
Oh, yeah.
Well, his brother was on the fire department, come on during the strike, and he left under some suspicious acts that he had done.
Wow.
He tried to set fire to a school out in, I think it was Lincolnwood or Skokie or Park Ridge, somewhere around there, and he did time. He's out though,
Right.
and he's not around anymore. I better not catch him. The little
Well, was
So-and-so.
it the one that him and his wife wrote a book about it?
No, that was Cowan.
Oh, okay.
That was Cowan. Dave Cowan, who wrote the book, also turned out to be an arsonist.
Yes, yes.
And what a goof. I wish Jimmy was
He's
here.
married to Ursula Bielski, who does a lot of those.
Right.
Yeah, that was his
There's a
wife.
lot of
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
that was,
yeah.
she does the ghost.
That's right.
ghost and the cemetery.
Yeah,
books.
yeah. But no, Cowan isn't around anymore. I don't know where he is.
Bill, I think he's the one that set a fire at St. Benedict's Church over in Irving and 11th.
Yes, he did.
I think it's
Yeah,
where they
yes, he
caught
did.
him.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
And I went and I was baptized in that church.
Well, he said that, and then right after that, a priest, one of the priests there, also set a fire.
Gee.
And they put him, I don't want to say put him away, but the church put him in a halfway house or whatever it was, and I got to know him because he would come around, and he's a fire fan. Came around and rode with me a couple of times, and the chaplain of the police department at that time, Tom Nangle, got a hold of me one day, and he says, "What is the matter with you? You got an arsonist running around with you." And I had no idea.
It's amazing, some stories about arsonists. There, Joe Wamba, the guy that wrote all those police books,
Yeah.
he wrote a book he wrote like two non-fiction books, and I think it's called Firestarter, and it's about a fire marshal out in California.
Right.
It's a real interesting book. That he was-
Firestarter?
Yeah, that he was.
Yeah.
This guy was always showing up, like the first one on the scene at fires, and they found out.
Because he started it.
Yeah, 'cause
He was an
Yeah.
arson investigator, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was real
Well,
interesting.
that's all in the mind, you know. It's
Yeah.
like the guys that take it out with a automatic gun and start shooting people, and,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder.
That
You
fire
wonder.
I'm talking about California, that fire that's out there now.
Oh.
Man, unbelievable.
You know, the guys used to ask me about, you know, what's with these firemen that battle these forest fires and that. I said, you know what? We think we got it bad here. I said, they really got it bad.
Yeah.
They really, and now that they see this, what's happened, they can see, you know, what the situation is.
He's a flame jumper, they call those guys? Or?
What they
Those
call-
guys, the guys,
the guys that jump.
they jump into the
Yeah.
paratroopers. Yeah, you talk about.
Yeah.
That's a.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
tough
Right.
out there. And you know, you're outside. We're in a building, and we pretty much know what we're doing. But when you're out there with Mother Nature, and that wind comes up,
Right.
you
Yeah.
better watch
they
yourself.
Get, yeah, those guys, they
Right.
get trapped in
Yeah.
Right.
the
In-
fire leapfrogs.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
buildings that survived were like big box stores and churches with big parking lots around them.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this on week from Saturday, December 1st. Like I say, it's the 60th anniversary, and it'll be at 10 o'clock at the Fire
DeKalb
Academy
Street.
on
Right.
DeKalb.
Right.
Admission free,
Right.
and this guy puts on a real good program. He's
Right.
dedicated.
Supposedly that location is the start of the Chicago fire. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
Fire
558
Academy, right?
DeKalb
It
Street.
is. Yeah.
Now,
They've got
Joe
them
Constantino, his dad now was on our job, who was in Loop, he was in Fillmore and Loop. He lived in the house that was right on there. There was a book like 1940 something,
Oh,
all about the houses of Chicago, and that's one of the places mentioned. Did you ever hear that?
yes, I
Right.
did. Yeah.
And Joe
yeah.
Constant, he just had young Joe Constantino, and it was him.
Okay.
I mentioned it. Joe was a really good guy. He was his son's had a pizzeria in Archway. They're in some
Right.
suburb now, but
Now
And
they
the-
want to tear it down or whatever they're going
Right.
to do with it. They want to build a new one on Chicago Avenue. and-
Right.
you want to do a police.
Yeah,
a
combined police.
Public
But a lot of
public
people
safety.
Don't
academy.
realize
Yeah.
Mrs. O'Leary's house didn't burn down. Her barn did,
Yeah.
but her house didn't, and people were really pissed off about it.
Well, you know,
On another subject, this is going to be the last open house of the year at the museum, correct?
yes, we don't have one in December because of the holidays.
Right.
Remember, folks,
Exactly.
5218 South Western Avenue. Parking is no problem. You got Western Avenue, Western Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois, 60632.
Boy, I'm glad.
your zip code?
Yeah. Oh,
Would
we
you let me
need
know that?
that. We need that.
I
I'm
might-
gonna-
You,
I'm
John,
gonna-
do you have a zip code secret? That,
no, it might, the subject might come up in Jeopardy or something. You never know. You never tell. And we're getting pretty close to the end. And I'm so glad. I think we had a pretty doggone good show here today, guys. And here's wishing everybody out there is going to have a great, great holiday.
Right.
A great Thanksgiving holiday. Even if you're not a Puritan.
Can I also
Or
mention
Pilgrim.
that another sad occasion this Thanksgiving Day, the 22nd, is the anniversary of the assassination of
Yes, it
President
is.
John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And anybody who was alive at that time can remember how somber that Thanksgiving was, because he was killed on the Friday before Thanksgiving. And I can recall how dark everything still was a week later, and
Right.
the scenes were the laying of the wreaths at his grave in Washington. I mean, it shows you how different the country was. I mean, it didn't make any difference whether you were a Democrat or Republican. Everyone was affected by the assassination of a president.
For anyone who wasn't around, it was the same feeling you got when you heard about 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good comparison.
Like your guts were kicked out.
Absolutely.
He was
Absolutely.
what, in his second year of his presidency, and they were talking about
third year.
impeachment then too.
We
For
were
a
talking
while.
about he wasn't going to make it,
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, it came along. Now, it was during his administration. We were talking about this before. He came up with the idea of a tax cut, right?
Oh yeah, he sponsored an across-the-board tax cut
Right.
in 1962,
And it worked.
and it's the kind of tax cut that today his party calls tax cuts
No,
for the
it
rich.
didn't come into fruition until Johnson was president, though, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it didn't take effect because he, of course, was assassinated. And I don't think it had made its way finally through Congress. But he proposed it in 1962, and across the board, tax rates in those days were the top rate was 91%.
Yeah.
And Kennedy proposed slashing that down to, I think, 70% for the top rate, which was considered a drastic reduction at that.
Still kind of high to me.
It was still high, but for a rate that had been in effect for a number of years, it was considered to be a radical move. And Kennedy proposed. He said, "A rising tide lifts all boats."
Well, it's a
That was his
no-brainer when you tell
yeah.
someone, okay, look, reduce the tax cut, business picks up, more people are back to work, so more people are paying taxes.
That was the idea.
Ergo,
That it
the government gets more money.
It generates more revenue than what you lose by reducing the tax.
And that's what's happening right
During the
now.
Second World War, for a lot of corporations, it was 100%, wasn't it?
No, I think that the 91 traced back to World War II. That was the rate that had been put in World War II. That's individual income tax.
Oh, I'm talking about
I'm not sure
corporate.
what, I don't know. No, I'm sure the corporate rate wasn't 100%. It was probably high, but I mean, even they reckon you have to have some incentive for people to
Right.
make a profit on things. But there was so much business that even at a small rate, they were still making a great deal of profit.
They were busy, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
My mother went to work
Unemployment
for
was, I think-
Stuart Warner back
Oh, yeah.
then, and she was making a good salary,
did
and
they make
everybody
there,
else was.
Bill?
Oh, they made electronic stuff and
Automotive gauges.
My wife's brother-in-law worked there.
speedometers. Yeah, speedometers, and they made
Car
they did a lot
accessories.
of
They-
of,
Stuart Warner-
through the army, or
Well,
the-
yeah, I
Stuart Warner, is he related to Jack Warner of Warner Brothers Pictures?
I have no idea.
No?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it was Warner Olin
Maybe
who
it
played
was
Charlie
Stewart.
Chan.
Warner Olin?
Yeah, Warner
Yes.
Olin. The unemployment rate in 1944 was under 2%. Under 2%. There was still unemployment even in 1944, but it was under 2%.
Those were the guys getting drafted.
Well, they say it's people that are changing jobs, people that are going to a different job. There's always going to be some even in full employment. There's some unemployment.
Wasn't there something during the Second World War you couldn't quit, but you could be fired? Really?
I suppose.
Or maybe it
I
was the
think
other
that was
way.
the Chicago Fire Department.
It was now, that makes me think of Cardinal Supich recently. He came up with he wanted all of the archdiocesan priests to wear their shorts in the shower because they shouldn't look down on the unemployed.
Well, he reminds me. He reminds me of the story of the politician who could not be bought, but he could be rented.
Rented, yeah.
On that happy note, goodbye for Bill Kugelman, John Koshelko, my ride. Better be
Rich
good to you.
Lang.
Announcer and
Richard Lang.
radio impersonator Rich Lang, Don Peterson,
Oh, Peter.
Peters.
Right.
You're not a son of someone.
Just like one. Yeah.
Huh?
You're a son of someone, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, you're a son of Peterson.
No.
No,
Son of a Sikh.
Don
not
Peters,
that long.
No S.
Tom Peter,
Three name.
Don
Donald
Peter.
Michael Peter.
Thomas F. McKenna, John T. Ryan.
Have a
Until
blessed
next time, remember that history is much more than a book that you keep on your shelf.
There we go.
have a blessed and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Right.
Recordings of previous Meet the Chicago Historians programs are available for your listening pleasure via the internet at www.windycityhometown.com. We want to thank the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, John Seconda. On behalf of everyone associated with our Historians program, we thank you for listening and have a great, happy Thanksgiving. This is your announcer, Rich Lang. So long until next time.
You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, November the 19th, the year 2018. This broadcast was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. On behalf of the entire staff of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a very, very happy and blessed Thanksgiving.